Hey everyone, welcome to FanFic Canon. Thanks for hitting play. I'm thrilled to bring this fan-made story to life for you. If you enjoy the ride and want more narrated fanfics, smash, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you want audiobook of a novel of your choice, join my Patreon. Request any title that's freely available online, and I'll produce a full narration just for you. Now, let's dive into today's adventure.
Whoosh! A red flash cut through the silence of my apartment, and I reappeared in the middle of my living room like I'd been spat out by reality itself. My knees buckled for half a second. Not because I was hurt, just exhausted. The deep bone-level kind of tired that makes breathing feel like effort. I flicked my wrist. The Omni-suit dissolved into drifting particles of light and snapped back into the Omni-morpher with a clean, satisfying click. Under the armor, I was still in my regular clothes, which somehow made the whole thing feel even more ridiculous. I didn't even try to be graceful. I face-planted onto the couch like an old man who just finished hauling furniture up 3 flights of stairs. Ugh. I rolled onto my back, tossed one leg over the armrest, and stared at the ceiling like it had personally betrayed me. Overdrive mode really drains you after. Earlier, I'd felt unstoppable. Like I could punch through a mountain and still have energy left to complain about it. Now my body wanted sleep so badly I genuinely wouldn't have cared if the universe ended in the next 10 minutes. A small ping echoed in my head. Mission completed. Calculating reward. I tried to focus. Tried. My eyelids sank like they were weighted. Yeah, sleep first. Rewards later. And, just like that, darkness took me. Bruce Banner POV. Warm. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the kind of warm that comforts you. The kind that tells you you're hooked up to machines doing their best to keep you alive. My eyes opened slowly. White ceiling. Soft lighting. Clean tiles. A steady mechanical hum somewhere near my head. Not a hospital I recognized. I blinked a few times, trying to orient myself, and immediately noticed the 4 lines. One in each arm, feeding something clear into my veins. I lifted my hand. My fingers trembled slightly, like they weren't sure they belonged to me yet. Where am I? I rasped. Sitting up felt like dragging concrete. My muscles resisted in a way that made my stomach drop. Like I'd been through a war. Pieces of memory slammed back in. Pain. Panic. The roar that wasn't mine. Hulk, I whispered. I closed my eyes and saw flashes. Broken streets. Explosions. Soldiers. Screaming. And then something bright red cutting through it all. A figure. A ranger? Before I could grab the thought and hold it. Clunk. The door opened. The sound alone made my whole body tense. My eyes snapped to the entrance, and my brain went cold. A towering creature stepped in, upright like a man, but unmistakably not human. Deep blue fur. Glowing eyes. A uniform that looked too advanced to belong to any government agency I'd ever run from. Authority rolled off him like a physical pressure. Some old instinct in me tried to rise. Tried to reach for that rage like a weapon. But I forced it down. I wasn't the Hulk right now. I assure you, the creature said, calm and controlled, there's no need to panic, Dr. Banner. I stared. You know my name? Of course. He walked in with measured, confident steps. You are currently in SPD headquarters. I am Commander Anubis Doggy Kruger, head of Earth's SPD division. SPD. I repeated, like saying it slowly would make it sound less insane. Space Patrol Delta. An intergalactic peacekeeping force. Earth is under our protection. I let out a short breath through my nose, half disbelief, half exhaustion. Okay. I was in Angel Grove. The last thing I remember is, you lost control. Kruger cut in, not unkindly, but without sugarcoating it. The Hulk surfaced. The military responded. It escalated. My throat tightened. And then, I asked, the words coming out sharper than I meant. How much damage did I? You were stopped. I looked up fast. Stopped? By who? The Omni-Ranger, Kruger said. He subdued the Hulk before further damage could occur. He also brought you here. Air rushed out of my lungs like I'd been holding it for hours. So I didn't kill anyone? No confirmed casualties. Kruger's voice stayed steady. The Ranger contained the incident. Injuries were treated. Damage was reversed. Buildings restored. I closed my eyes, relief hitting so hard it almost made me dizzy. Thank you, I whispered. Omni-Ranger. Kruger stepped closer. His tone didn't soften exactly, but it shifted into something more human. I understand what you live with, Doctor. I won't pretend you can process all of this in a minute. But you're safe here. Under SPD protection. I cracked my eyes open, wary again. You're not going to lock me up? Experiment on me. Kruger let out a deep, booming laugh that surprised me so much I almost flinched. Of course not. SPD doesn't conduct unethical testing. We don't cage beings because they frighten others. That was almost unfamiliar. The kind of statement that sounded like a lie, except he said it like it was obvious. I sat up a little straighter. Well, I muttered, you're already better than half the agencies I've dealt with. I'm pleased to hear it, Kruger said. Because I have a proposal. My brow lifted. A proposal? He moved to a console and tapped the screen. A holographic display bloomed nearby, projecting documents in neat layers. Dr. Banner, Kruger said, you are one of Earth's greatest minds in gamma radiation and cellular biology. SPD could use that. You want me to work for you, I said, not quite a question. As a scientific advisor. Research personnel, he clarified. Ethical oversight. Resources you can't access on Earth. Intergalactic technology. In return, we help you manage the Hulk and reduce future incidents. He paused, then added, you'll be provided housing in either Angel Grove or New Tech City. A monthly stipend. And the ability to continue your work without being hunted. That hit me harder than it should have. Why? I asked quietly. Why take the risk? Kruger's eyes narrowed, not threatening. Sincere. Because redemption matters, he said. Because controlling the Hulk protects everyone. And because even the Hulk deserves a second chance. Silence settled. I looked down at my hands. They still trembled. Always trembling, like they remembered what they could become. A part of me wanted to say no out of habit. But another part of me wanted to stop running. And I won't be treated like a bomb with legs? I asked. Cameras on me 24/7? Chains the second I raise my voice. You will be supervised, Kruger said plainly. But as a colleague. Not a prisoner. I swallowed. Okay, I breathed. I accept. Kruger nodded once. Good. There will be a formal contract. Standard protocol. I'd prefer New Tech City, I said immediately. It's safer than Angel Grove. Granted. He handed me a digital pad. I read the terms carefully, expecting traps. I found none. No invasive clauses. No hidden ownership of my body or mind. Just safety rules, ethical agreements, and the kind of oversight that actually made sense. I signed. Done. Kruger extended a clawed hand. I shook it, firm despite the weakness in my arms. Welcome to SPD, Dr. Bruce Banner. A faint smile tugged at my mouth before I could stop it. Let's hope I don't destroy your lab. Kruger's mouth curved, almost amused. Our labs are reinforced against planetary-level threats, he said. You'd be surprised how often they get tested. A weak chuckle slipped out of me. Yeah, I said, exhaling for what felt like the first time in forever. I think I'm going to like it here. The wind whispered through the dense green forest bordering Blue Bay Harbor, carrying with it the mingled scents of salt water and blooming cherry blossoms. Hidden deep within this coastal sanctuary stood the Wind Ninja Academy, concealed from the outside world by ancient techniques and layered illusion barriers. Birdsong echoed through the trees. Wooden chimes swayed gently. And in the Academy's open courtyard, the sharp crack of clashing practice weapons rang out again and again. At the center of the outdoor training grounds stood 3 teenagers. Sweaty, out of breath, and clearly outmatched. Shane Clark, Tori Hansen, Dustin Brooks. The voice cut through the air like a thrown blade. Master Kanoi Watanabe stood before them, arms folded within the sleeves of his traditional robes. His expression was calm, unreadable, yet the weight of disappointment pressed down on the courtyard. You were late, he said evenly. Again. The three shifted uncomfortably. And once more, Watanabe continued, you fail to grasp the meaning of discipline. Your movements lack unity. Your minds lack focus. And worst of all, your actions lack intention. Shane rubbed the back of his neck, flashing an awkward grin. Come on, Master W. We only joined recently. Balancing ninja training and normal life isn't exactly easy. Torai crossed her arms, composed as ever. We're trying at least. It's not like we're slacking. We're just still learning. Dustin laughed, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, compared to some of the other recruits, we're doing pretty great. Pitiful. Master Watanabe sighed and slowly turned his back to them. You believe this is a game? He asked softly. The quiet in his voice carried more threat than shouting ever could. You think power comes from flashy techniques and casual effort? He raised one hand slightly. Teach them. Before the three could react, shadows dropped from above. Three masked ninja descended in complete silence, landing with precision that barely disturbed the air. Instinct took over. Shane swung. Torai pivoted. Dustin shouted and charged. It didn't matter. They were overwhelmed in seconds, outpaced, outmaneuvered, dismantled by pure technique. Thwack. Their elemental chakra was drained almost instantly. Weapons flew from their hands. Bodies hit the ground hard, rolling across the dirt in a blur of motion. Groans echoed through the courtyard. Shane clutched his side. Was that even legal? Torai spat out dust. I didn't even see them move. Dustin groaned dramatically. Man, they're scarier than Kelly. Master Watanabe turned back toward them, his expression unchanged. There are forces moving beyond your understanding, he said calmly. Shadows gathering where you cannot yet see. I do not train you to win tournaments. I train you to survive. He paused, gaze sharp. Because one day, responsibilities far greater than yourselves will come looking for you. The three lay there, stunned, confused, and suddenly very aware of how small they were. Are we getting drafted into something? Shane muttered. Master Watanabe gave no reply. Instead, his form shimmered, light bending around him as he transformed into a glowing silhouette, then vanished entirely, leaving only drifting cherry blossom petals in his wake. Torai pushed herself up slowly. Was that supposed to be symbolic? Dustin scratched his head, staring at the empty space. I think Master W's operating on a whole different plane, dude. They exchanged glances, half fear, half curiosity. Whatever was coming. They definitely weren't ready. Zane's POV. Ugh. I cracked my eyes open and immediately regretted it. Sunlight poured through the window like it was trying to blind me personally. Wait, morning. I sat up too fast and winced. My muscles protested, sore in that deep, lingering way that only came after pushing past every limit you had. Instinctively, I checked my Omni-Grid interface. I slept an entire day? I slumped back onto the couch, one hand pressing against my forehead. Haha, yeah. Overdrive really wrecked me. No dreams. No nightmares. Just complete blackout. Honestly, worth it. I'd trade a day of unconsciousness for B+ tier power any time. Still, definitely need to work on stamina, I muttered. Then I smirked to myself. I'll get stronger. Strong enough that B+ won't even dent my energy reserves. Ding. A holographic prompt finally resolved itself in front of me. Mission complete. Subdue the rampaging Worldbreaker Hulk, Young. Experience gained. 1000 EXP. Item acquired. Base building materials, advanced tier, X120. Blueprint unlocked. Universal Habitat Core. Blueprint unlocked. Omni-Tech Workshop. Blueprint unlocked. Medical Bay Module. Blueprint unlocked. AI Defense Subsystem Kara. Special Reward, Terrain Customization Card. Special Reward, Absolute Shield Dome, EX. My eyes widened. Damn, that was way more than I expected. I scrolled through the blueprints. The Universal Habitat Core looked like something ripped straight out of a sci-fi epic. The AI subsystem came with adaptive emotional modeling and tactical override protocols. Alpha 5 was going to love this. Guess the grid really wants me to build a proper base, I said quietly. Then my gaze locked onto the last item. Absolute Shield Dome, EX. A top-tier cloaking and defense system. Total detection denial. Clairvoyance. Precognition. Time observation. Fate tracing. All blocked. The base would become a blind spot, even to Tier S beings. Invisible. Untouchable. Absolute. Holy hell. This wasn't just security. This was narrative-level protection. Even if some cosmic entity tried peeking at me through destiny itself, they'd find nothing. That's priceless. I saved everything into my digital inventory and dismissed the interface, sinking deeper into the couch. My own base, I murmured, smiling faintly. A lab. A training ground. A safe house. A command center. For the first time since arriving in this insane world, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was putting down roots. And I wasn't about to waste them. The sharp tone of the alarm broke the peaceful silence of a neatly arranged medium-sized bedroom. It wasn't particularly fancy or rich in aesthetics, but it was clean, functional, and smelled faintly of pine-scented wood polish. The digital clock blinked 5 a.m., its crimson glow faint in the dimly lit room. "Good morning to the world," Zane muttered in a soft tone, his voice slightly raspy from just waking up. His face looked dazed, like someone who had just emerged from a dream they couldn't remember. But his eyes were still sharp, a silent reflection of someone who never truly let his guard down. He swung his legs off the bed, stood up with a quiet stretch, and moved with fluid discipline. Into the bathroom he went. Water splashed. Toothbrush worked. Teeth gleamed. He stared at the mirror and let out a soft chuckle. Yup. I'm handsome. It wasn't vanity. It was just fact. High cheekbones, sharp jawline, symmetrical face, skin that always seemed to glow faintly no matter the time of day. He looked like the main character of a sci-fi K-drama, but still grounded in reality. He had the face of someone who'd lived through things. Once he was done, he came out, made his bed with surgical precision, tucked the corners perfectly, and rolled the blanket with the formality of a military man. Then he pulled out a small handheld vacuum cleaner and began the daily routine. The humming filled the room. No music. No distractions. Just the constant, soft purr of the vacuum. The air was still. Peaceful. This morning's silence was a kind of therapy to Zane. A ritual. One of the few things he could control in a life that was otherwise full of chaos and cosmic-level headaches. By the time he was done, the time read 6:30 a.m. He changed into his gym clothes, black joggers, sleeveless compression shirt, lightweight runners. He packed his post-workout protein blend in a bottle, locked his door tight, and stepped outside. The air was cool and damp. The kind of air that tasted clean on your tongue. The sun had just started to rise, casting faint orange streaks across the horizon. The streets were almost deserted, except for a few newspaper vendors and old men sweeping their porches. Zane inhaled deeply, letting the oxygen fill his lungs. Silent mornings like this make this chaotic universe quite normal, he thought with a relaxed smile. He cracked his neck, rolled his shoulders. Then motion. His feet struck the pavement. Each step was precise. Each motion, smooth and powerful. He wasn't just jogging, he was flowing. His legs moved like pistons, calves contracting rhythmically, spine upright, pace consistent. He didn't hold back. After all, he had superhuman strength now. No point babying it. Besides, he had someone to honor. David Goggins. Who else was going to carry the boat of this universe? Zane smirked. Me. Obviously. But as he passed a familiar park bend, he saw a blur of motion to his left. Someone else was jogging. Slim frame, blonde ponytail, graceful form despite the sweat that lined her temple. It was Kira. She noticed him too, and visibly blinked in surprise. Zane, she said between short breaths. Didn't expect to see you out here. He gave a casual nod. Morning. Kira smiled faintly, slowing her pace to match his. I always see you running around this time. First time you've actually said hi, though. That last sentence wasn't said aloud, but it echoed in her head, clear as crystal. She'd seen him countless times, day after day, running with military discipline. Always focused. Always quiet. like a machine made of flesh and drive. Yet this time, he spoke. Early runs keep the mind sharp, Zane said with a half shrug. And the world feels less stupid before 7 a.m. Kira let out a soft chuckle. Yeah, the world does get more stupid after 7. They jogged side by side in silence for a bit. A comfortable rhythm. Then Zane asked, "You heading to the gym after this?" She nodded. Yeah, gonna do some lifting and maybe hit the treadmill after. Wanna go together then? He offered casually. Kira blinked again, surprised by the offer. Sure. Later, at the gym. 7:15 a.m. to 10 a.m. They trained hard. Zane kept his weight sessions efficient: bench, squat, deadlift, pull-ups, clean reps. Meanwhile, Kira focused more on her balance, form, and bodyweight training. Occasionally, they exchanged tips. Zane corrected her squat posture once. Kira teased him for not stretching enough. Time flew fast. By 10 a.m., both of them were drenched in sweat and laughing about Dustin's awful gym playlist choices the other day. They stepped outside the gym and found a shaded bench under a tree. Cool breeze, warm sun. The world felt just right. Kira sipped her bottled water, letting out a long breath. Then she spoke softly. You know, sometimes I wish I was more like you. Zane looked at her, brow slightly raised. You've got everything, she continued. Smart. Handsome. Charismatic. And you look like someone who's completely free. Like, you don't have to answer to anyone's expectations. Zane listened in silence. But inside? Haha. Expectation-free? I've got the entire multiverse waiting for me to save it from imploding. If only you knew. Still, he didn't say that. Instead, he just watched her as she opened up, talking about herself, her struggles, how people sometimes expect her to be the cool one, the chill girl, the rock star rebel. But she wasn't always that. Sometimes she just wanted to scream. Sometimes she wanted to disappear. And sometimes she just wanted to feel normal. When she finally stopped talking, she looked at him, eyes uncertain. So, what should I do? Zane leaned forward a bit. Don't lose yourself trying to meet everyone else's expectations, he said calmly. If you wear too many masks, one day you'll forget what your real face looks like. Kira blinked. He continued, do what makes you feel real. If music helps, use it. If silence helps, embrace it. Whatever keeps you whole, chase that. Not approval. Kira stared at him. And then, before either of them could process it, she hugged him. A tight, reflexive gesture. Natural. Raw. Her arms wrapped around his torso. She buried her face for half a second. Then, both froze. Kira pulled back, eyes wide, cheeks red. Zane coughed twice and looked away, scratching the back of his neck. Ahem. Kira stood up too quickly. I should go. Thanks for, everything. Zane gave a subtle nod. No problem. They walked off in separate directions. No words. Just silence and a lot of thoughts. Later, at Zane's home, the door closed with a gentle click behind him. He stepped in and sighed, towel slung over his shoulder. His body was hardly strained from the intense workout at the gym. And his mind? Clear. Would I need to create some kind of gravity chamber for real strength building? He thought to himself. Nah, I'll worry about that later. He affirmed. He walked into the bathroom, took a long, refreshing bath. The steam, the water, the scent of his sandalwood body wash, it all made him feel grounded. After the bath, he stepped out with a towel around his waist. Changed into freshly washed, crisp clothes, black jeans, plain fitted tee, clean white sneakers. He stood in front of the mirror once more and said, "It's time for the base operations." The sky was still blue. The air was still quiet. But inside my mind, a damn storm was brewing. I sat in the backyard of my apartment, the same place I usually came to meditate. While the city buzzed in ignorant peace, my thoughts drifted somewhere far beyond, toward responsibility, purpose, and legacy. It was time. Time to build my base. No more procrastination. No more delays. I needed a secure headquarters. A place where I could train, research, rest, and, if necessary, fight without restraint. Especially after what happened with Hulk, I knew that things were only going to escalate from here. Grid, I called out mentally, my tone resolute. I need to choose the best possible location for my base. Got any suggestions? There was a slight pause, probably the grid judging me from whatever cosmic control room it operated from, before a prompt flickered before my eyes. Analyzing planetary terrain. Filtering optimal base construction sites based on concealment, security, natural energy flow, dimensional interference, and tactical advantage. This was sounding more like real estate shopping for a fortress than just pick a cave and start welding. Suddenly, several options popped up in a glowing blue holographic grid. Small blue diamond Shadow Veil Island, located somewhere in the Pacific, cloaked by natural electromagnetic storms and deep fog banks that cause all electronic or magical tracking systems to fail. The island is uncharted and uninhabitable by normal standards, but perfect for concealment. Small blue diamond Crimson Dune Expanse, a hidden desert plateau in North Africa that's completely cut off from satellite scans and covered in unstable space-time anomalies. Energy is dense here. Some say it's where Atlantis might have relocated in ancient times. Small blue diamond Echo Ravine, Antarctic perimeter. Beneath the icy crust lies a vast network of crystalline caves, undetectable to heat signatures. However, its location is brutally cold, and the terrain unstable without modification. Small blue diamond Verdant Fong Jungle, a lush, unexplored rainforest tucked deep within the Amazon, guarded by sentient plant life that instinctively attacks intruders. Rich with natural energy and mystical potential, but also insanely dangerous. Small blue diamond Stellar Chasm, a collapsed meteor crater located in the Himalayas, housing unknown materials and shielding properties from cosmic scans. The high altitude makes it difficult to access without teleportation. All were solid. All had pros and cons. But I'm not a tourist. I want security, concealment, and nature. But I don't want to be murdered by sentient trees or spend my days freezing my ass off. Grid, I said again, why are all these places far from New York? To encourage the host to develop a personal teleportation array. Over-reliance on grid shortcuts will reduce future potential. Manual construction and strategic thought processes are optimal. TCH. Teaching me lessons now, huh? I chuckled, shaking my head. But deep down, I liked it. This wasn't just about building a hideout. It was about mastering my tools. Becoming what I needed to become. After considering the options carefully, I made my decision. Shadow Veil Island it is. Excellent choice. Would you like to teleport now and begin initialization? Wait, I said quickly. Let me get my gear. And prepare the shielding first. I don't want some alien overlord or multiversal god peeking through the curtains while I'm laying bricks. Deploying. Absolute Shield Dome EXA/N. Don't worry, guys, it's for the base, but he has to use it to prevent any form of tracking. The moment I said that, space distorted around me like heat waves on asphalt. I could feel the power rip through the atmosphere as a massive barrier of pure omni-force, encoded with layers of dimensional encryption, wrapped itself around the coordinates. Shield deployed. This zone is now cloaked from all sensory types: mystical, technological, divine, infernal, prophetic, and fate-based. Status: undetectable. Perfect. Time to build. Location: Shadow Veil Island. The teleport was instant red light, a short gust of energy, and then I was standing on damp grass surrounded by mist. The island was hauntingly beautiful. Thick fog roamed lazily across dense trees, while black cliffs lined the edges like ancient guardians. No birds chirped. No wind howled. But the silence wasn't dead, it was expectant. Like the island itself was watching me. I walked into the chosen clearing, opened my system inventory, and said, "Grid, deploy the barrier here and unload the materials." As long as I deploy the barrier in the base, it will work simultaneously for any moment, and I teleport to the base. Affirmative. Suddenly, space warped in front of me, and crates of luminous, glowing materials, each the size of a small SUV, landed on the ground with silent precision. As I looked over the supplies, I was stunned. These weren't just metal and plastic. These were rare. These were elite. They were glittering under the sun, like damn disco lights. I was almost sure these were the kind of materials multiversal blacksmiths would kill to get their hands on. I scanned through the pile quickly. Trionium alloy, a vibrationally adaptive supermetal that regenerates over time when damaged. Eclipse obsidiite, a dark purple crystal metal hybrid that can reflect both light and magical attacks, mined from collapsed stars. Ether steel framework, used in building palaces on higher planes. Resists entropy, time erosion, and dimensional collapse. Mythonite cores, infused with primordial chaos energy, used to power ultra-high energy systems like planetary shields or ship drives. Phantom rootwood, stabilized, grows in no light, used for resonance-based equipment or stealth tech. Xerolith fiberglass, a flexible energy conductor used in ancient civilizations that predate our universe. This wasn't just a base I was building. This was a stronghold worthy of a god-tier warrior. Damn. Grid really didn't hold back on the quality. Correction. All rewards are based on host performance. If host continues to exceed mission expectations, higher-grade materials and blueprints will be unlocked. Noted. I'll keep up the good work then. I pulled out the terrain customization card and activated it. Initializing. Terrain optimization protocol. Please specify desired landscape structure: flat, dome, multi-layered, underground, hybrid. Hybrid. Multi-tiered layers with underground levels and a flat central area for the core structure. Forest perimeter maintained for camouflage. Processing. The ground rumbled. The trees reshuffled like respectful guardians, the land flattened in specific patterns, and a massive crater-like basin formed in the center of the island. Slowly, platforms began to raise, and stair-like formations stretched toward the sky. The fog never cleared, it simply swirled around the changes. I stood there in awe, watching this god-tier landscaping unfold like some surreal art project. A few moments later, a quiet chime echoed in my ears. Base terrain customization complete. Primary construction may now begin. Recommendation: begin by anchoring the Universal Habitat Core. This will stabilize the zone and allow dimensional expansion. I nodded. Time to get to work. But as I stood there, surrounded by crates of divine materials, rare modules, and enough construction tech to make Tony Stark sweat, I realized something. This wasn't just about making a base to hide in. This was a monument. A declaration. That Izane was the fortress of the multiverse and even more. And he wasn't going anywhere. Not until the multiverse was safe, and maybe not even then. When I said I was building a base, I didn't expect to terraform a pocket planet. But here we are. I stood in the middle of what used to be a thick, mist-covered clearing. Now, it was something else entirely. An entire landscape the size of a planet, yes, a planet, lay around me. Floating islands hovered lazily in the skies. Lakes shimmered in soft colors. Stone arches framed areas like natural gateways, and hovering terrain plates slowly rotated in zero-gravity zones like someone copy-pasted fantasy art from Pinterest and said, "Make it real." The kicker? You couldn't even tell from the outside. Thanks to the Absolute Shield Dome EX and the terrain customization card, this place was cloaked tighter than Area 51's basement. I muttered under my breath, half exasperated, half impressed. I wanted to build a base. Now I'm making a damn realm. That thought sent a small chuckle out of me. Honestly, it wasn't even a complaint. I always dreamed of stuff like this. Floating islands. Hidden realms. Fantasy and sci-fi blended like hot coffee with caramel. And now, I had the tools to make it real. I snapped my fingers and called out to the grid. Bring up the blueprint for the Universal Habitat Core. Affirmative. A blue hologram emerged before me. Slowly, a 3D model of the core began to rotate midair. It looked like a glowing, transparent orb the size of a 5-story building, layered with concentric rings and crystalline conduits. At the very center was a pulsating core, probably the main power matrix. The schematics were dense, not just in size, but in concept. The habitat core wasn't just about air and temperature regulation. That'd be too basic. No. This thing was designed to balance every major form of cosmic energy in the multiverse: mana, ki, ether, spirit, divine energy, primordial force, neutral Ethereum, elemental threads, even void suppression zones were accounted for. It was essentially the heart of a self-sustaining, reality-adaptive realm. I scrolled through the material requirements. Fortunately, everything was already provided in the system's storage. Each component was ridiculous in its own right. Ethereum Crystal Lattice X12. This served as the primary energy conduit, harmonizing flow between different types of energies without destabilizing the surrounding environment. Trionium Spine Rods X8, used to stabilize gravitational pulls inside the core and anchor it in dimensional space. Without it, the core could literally float into another universe. Vantaplasma Tubing X45 meters, extremely rare. Allows the redirection of destructive energies into passive heat dispersal. Basically, it stops the core from nuking itself. Celestial Amber Clusters X3 can store and regulate divine energy like a spiritual capacitor. Shaped like liquid gold and fragile as hell. Oblivion Tempered Alloy, used for the outer casing. Can survive a direct hit from a star collapsing and still be shiny. My lips curved into a crooked grin. Yeah, this isn't a core. It's a damn miracle engine. But even with my brain, I wasn't stupid enough to try and build this alone. I needed help. Not just tools, real processing power. And I had just the assistant for the job. I brought out the capsule from my inventory and tossed it onto the flat construction slab I had created earlier. FSSS. A puff of steam. Then a sleek, humanoid machine unfolded itself with elegance. Its body was entirely matte white with sleek contour lines. No visible face, just a semi-gloss visor. Slim, agile, slightly shorter than me, definitely more Android assistant than BattleBot. Alpha 5. But upgraded. Or maybe I should say Alpha 5.0. Activate, I said. The moment the word left my lips, a soft humming sound filled the air. Its visor lit up in blue light. Activation complete, it said in a calm, almost feminine voice. Awaiting command input. I blinked. Wait, feminine voice? I checked the model name that flashed briefly across my retinas. Alpha 5 model, A5WF version, Femme Edition. Oh, the grid wasn't kidding when it said I had the variant package. You're not what I expected, I muttered, mildly amused. I am exactly what you require, she replied dryly. Oof. Snark mode already active. I tapped my forehead and brought back the blueprint again. All right, Alpha. We're building the Universal Habitat Core. Blueprints active. You see it. Her visor blinked. Visual acquired. Materials confirmed. This is a Tier 6 multiversal construct. Standard estimation of solo construction, 370 Earth years. Shall we optimize? Yeah, definitely optimizing. I scrolled through the blueprint again and brought up another item in my inventory. Grid, activate AI blueprint, Kara. Initializing AI construct. Alpha stepped forward and placed her palm against the floating blueprint. A soft wave of light spread through the space, like data being transferred through light pulses. A moment later, a new voice joined the conversation, gentle, calm, and slightly maternal. Hello, Alpha. Hello, Master Zane. A small orb of white and gold light hovered in the air, slowly condensing into the shape of a digital interface. Kara had no physical body, but her presence was comforting, like someone who'd spent centuries watching stars drift through space. I've loaded the full construction sequence. Shall we begin the sequence in stages? Yes. Let's start with the foundation matrix. Alpha, handle materials analysis. Kara, calculate the ideal location to anchor the core within the terrain's energy lines. Affirmative. Alpha began scanning the terrain with high-speed pulses, mapping gravitational fields and energy convergences. Kara floated to the center of the cleared area and pulsed with radiant lines of gold. There is a ley line convergence point 27 meters below current elevation, Kara stated. Ideal location for anchoring the core's gravitational lattice and etheric harmonizer. I nodded. Perfect. Begin excavation and build the magnetic base ring. Use Oblivion Tempered Alloy first. I don't want this thing going anywhere, even if the sky falls. Alpha turned to me, motionless for a second before replying, understood. Deploying zero-G nano drones. Tiny, glowing drones burst from her arms like fireflies, silent, blue, and efficient. They swarmed the area and began carving through the ground with precision lasers. As they worked, I walked over to the resource crates and picked up a chunk of Ethereum crystal lattice. It was warm. Not hot. Warm. Like it was alive. I still can't believe this is real, I muttered, tossing it gently between my hands. Ethereum crystal. This stuff is used in dimensional star drives and world sculpting engines. And I've got a whole crate. Kara chimed in. Ethereum's internal structure allows it to refract multi-spectrum energies simultaneously. It is the only known material capable of balancing divine, void, and mana currents without causing energy polarity disruption. In English, I said with a small smirk. Alpha stepped in. It's the only reason you won't explode the base when spirit and void energies touch. Yeah, that sounds important. The construction continued rapidly. The excavation pit was completed in under 10 minutes. Next came the trionium spine rods. I helped manually anchor them myself, 8 rods forming a perfect octagonal base. Each one hummed with gravitational resonance as soon as it touched the ground. Kara floated near the edge of the pit. Begin sealing with vantoplasma tubing. Attach them to the inner core framework. Alpha will link the flow regulators. On it. I pulled out the coiled tubing. It shimmered like liquid obsidian, almost smoke-like in appearance. We ran them through the channels of the framework while Alpha adjusted the flow ports. Each port clicked softly, a sign of perfect connection. Kara continued humming faintly. Zane, do you understand why the habitat core must balance these energies? I've got a rough idea, I said, wiping my brow. If one energy dominates, it creates instability. A realm like this needs harmony, a place where spirit users, mages, divine beings, and tech users can coexist without frying each other. Correct, she replied. It is also necessary if you wish to expand the base to accommodate future allies. Or refugees. My eyes narrowed slightly. Refugees. Alpha nodded this time. The multiverse is large. Wars are coming. You will need space, security, power, and trust. I stayed silent for a moment. Because she wasn't wrong. This place wasn't just my personal fortress. It was becoming something more. Maybe even a sanctuary. I stared at the slowly forming core. It glowed softly, humming with the breath of reality itself. And I whispered to myself, I hope this place can be the greatest defense for the planet and more. It had been a few hours since the foundation of the Universal Habitat Core was laid. The framework was in place, the materials positioned, and every part of the plan had been followed to the T. But even Zane knew that was the easy part. Now came the part that separated a true engineer from a hobbyist. Zane stood in the middle of the floating construction platform, a massive silver ring around him slowly rotating in zero gravity. The core sat idle, framework exposed, materials prepped but not yet fused. All right, he muttered, scrolling through the grid interface. Now to bring this thing to life. Just then, the familiar chime of the grid resounded in his mind. System notification, user does not need to manually fuse materials. Construction can now proceed using the simulation holograph protocol. 3 attempts permitted before cooldown. Zane blinked. Wait, you're telling me I don't need to weld, bolt, or energy fuse anything? Affirmative. I could have skipped several hours of sweating over gravitational anchor points. You have earned the right to use simulation functions. Efficiency is key. He stared flatly into the air. Gee, thanks for telling me after I bolted myself into a floating structure. Alpha 5 said nothing. Kara simply hovered near the control terminal, passive and nonchalant. No emotions. No smirks. Just blank professionalism. Zane sighed and extended his hand. All right. Load the simulation holograph. A massive spherical display bloomed around him like a blooming flower of light. Blueprints hovered midair, flowing with runic markings and reactive subroutines. 3 holographic versions of the core flickered into existence before him. Simulation 1. Basic functional flow. Zane traced his finger through the design. Everything looked okay, but not optimal. The energy channels were mismatched slightly. The divine circuit overlapped the etheric root by 2.3 nanometers. Not gonna work, he said flatly. With a wave of his hand, he reset. Simulation 2. Reinforced lattice with void buffering. This one was better. Much better. The design pulsed with layered harmonics. The inner reactor had a stable flux matrix. But the moment he activated the time dilation module in the sim, the outer containment ring cracked. Still too fragile, he muttered, deleting it again. He cracked his knuckles and stared at the third model. Simulation 3. Multi-energy tier stabilizer with quantum tether lock. Every layer was interlocked like a cosmic puzzle box. Ethereum perfectly spaced. Divine clusters evenly split. The trionium spine rods formed a multi-dimensional pyramid formation, stabilizing both gravitational and metaphysical pull. Even Kara gave a flicker of light. This simulation is excellent, she said. Lock it in, Zane said with confidence. Confirmed. Begin live construction. Fwum. The moment the words echoed, everything changed. The materials stored around the platform started to rise, levitating into the air as though pulled by invisible hands. The crystals slid into slots with perfect precision. Alloy sheets twisted midair and snapped into place, glowing with electric blue circuitry. Rings began to spin, one after another, each humming with growing power. It wasn't just construction, it was art. Zane stood there, mouth slightly open. Is this what it feels like to be Tony Stark with magic? Even Alpha and Kara didn't speak. They simply hovered, observing as the orb slowly came to life. When the final component clicked into place, the entire structure trembled. And then, boom! A pulse of light erupted from the core, shaking the very fabric of the realm. Then space around the orb tore open. Dimensional rifts spiraled out from its base, forming invisible tunnels of light. The sky itself seemed to shift. Zane took a sharp step back. What the hell? The core had opened dozens, maybe hundreds, of energy conduits to places unknown. Each one silently inhaling and absorbing different forms of energy, some from familiar planes like the astral realm, others from realms Zane couldn't even comprehend. Then, just as fast, the rifts closed, sealing with zero trace. And that's when everything changed. The grass turned emerald green, radiant with vitality. Trees began to glow faintly. Water from nearby rivers shimmered with traces of magic and chi. Elemental spirits were born, tiny creatures made of flame, wind, light, and darkness. Some formed vague humanoid shapes, others like rabbits, birds, and fairies. A few floated up, glanced at Zane, and simply bowed midair. Zane's mouth was still open. He didn't even try to speak. The Universal Habitat Core had finished forming and turned a simple realm into a microcosm of life itself. Core complete. Beginning user scan. A soft light scanned Zane from head to toe. Universal Core registration complete. Recognized Master, Zane Callahan. Authority level, absolute. All future energy balance will align with users' presence and safety protocols. All newly born life forms within Realm will acknowledge user as original progenitor. He just stood there for a solid minute. He didn't even say anything. I'm a god. No, you are just the owner. Right. Totally makes it better. He finally chuckled and shook his head. He brought up the grid schematics of the core, and his jaw almost dropped again. The energy levels were infinite. Not just in theory. The grid didn't say very high or extremely vast. It said infinite. And not only that, the types of energy were beyond anything Zane had ever studied. Divine energy, mana, ki, ether, chaos force, void essence, bloodline energy, chronoparticles, technomatter currents, dream ether, fate stream, soul fire, celestial code, stellar core radiation, psionic pressure, world will particulates, reality weave. And the list kept going. He was looking at the literal cradle of creation in blueprint form. I can't believe I almost built this by hand, he muttered. He swiped the interface and tapped a button. Let's try something, he said. He focused on the terrain and commanded the core mentally, form floating islands. Elevation, 3 kilometers. Structure, hollow core. Trees. Waterfalls. Mini ecosystems. Rumble. With a low tremor, dozens of floating islands began rising from the earth, carved and shaped by invisible hands. Trees sprouted midair. Waterfalls cascaded into thin air and vanished before hitting the ground, caught in looped energy filtration. The whole thing was alive. Breathing. Moving. Time field detected. Realm time acceleration, 1 to 100. External, internal. The grid voice echoed again. Time can now be manipulated within realm via core authority. Maximum ratio is 1 to 100 at current stage. Upgrades possible in future. Zane watched as entire ecosystems began forming in minutes. Creatures started to make homes in the trees. Energy-based animals roamed freely. It was almost too much. But he was satisfied. Deeply satisfied. He opened his grid inventory again. Now then, time to bring out the rest. He tapped the next two blueprints, Medical Bay Module and Omni-Tech Workshop. Two massive blueprints appeared in front of him. Before he placed them, he realized something. I need a headquarters. It was just something that clicked. A central building. Something official. Something that would be the face of all future operations. He opened the grid store and searched Base Headquarters. Base Headquarters, tier listings. G-Level, Basic Barracks, 500 points. F-Level, Secure Compound, 800 points. E-Level, Advanced Compound, 1,200 points. D-Level, Tactical Fortress, 2,500 points. C-Level, Command Tower, 5,000 points. B-Level, Multiversal Outpost, 7,500 points. A-Level, Cosmic Fortress, 15,000 points. S-Level, Reality Bastion, 30,000 points. SS-Level, Omni Hall, 60,000 points. EX-Level, Creation Throne Citadel, 100,000 points. Zane stared at the prices. Yeah, not even close. Current points, 14,200. A/N. The points used would be fully explained in the coming chapters. They are very important to the story. Also, due to the grid's help, he will finish the base on the same day, albeit late. He sighed. Well, guess we're buying the B-Level. He tapped Multiversal Outpost, B-Level. Confirm purchase? Cost, 7,500 points. Do it. Confirmed. Construction beginning. Right in the heart of the floating realm, a massive fortress-like structure appeared from beneath the terrain, shaped like a futuristic command center, with glass-like panels, fortified steel, floating drones orbiting the roof, and a main entrance with a shimmering emblem. Zane's Morph Emblem. A/N. Guys, please help with an emblem, I'm confused. The HQ is massive. Main control room, oversaw all systems in the base. War room, tactical simulation chamber. Data core vault, storage of sensitive info and digital schematics. Guest quarters, fully furnished rooms for visitors. Armory chamber, full access to Ranger tech and grid tools. Mini dimension pocket room, room that could be customized into anything via mental command. And the whole thing? Unhackable. Undetectable. Indestructible. The grid didn't play when it built something. All right, Zane muttered. That's one less headache. He turned back to the medical bay and workshop blueprints. Instead of summoning them directly, he placed the blueprints manually and began constructing them with Alpha and Kara's help. The medical bay was roughly the size of a football field. It had stasis pods, regenerative chambers, DNA analyzers, and even interdimensional disease simulators. The lighting was soft. The floors clean. Every wall was laced with self-repairing nanites. The Omni-Tech Workshop was Zane's heaven. Workbenches. Tool rigs. Drone stations. Hologram projectors. Weapon mod bays. Armor test simulators. He even found a compartment labeled Experimental Junk Zone and grinned. Hours passed. The realm slowly became alive. System notification. New energy life forms forming. Zane raised an eyebrow. Are they dangerous? No. As user holds highest authority, all creatures view you as creator. Some may have individual personalities, but none will disobey or harm user. He exhaled in relief. Good. He stood at the center of it all. The floating islands. The HQ. The medical bay. The tech workshop. Energy life forms curiously watching from the trees. He cracked his knuckles. It's time. He turned to the grid. Let's build the teleportation gates. Zane stood before the towering walls of his newly established base, its sleek structure gleaming faintly beneath the light of twin suns overhead. A gentle breeze brushed his face as he tilted his head up, studying the result of days of labor, ingenuity, and relentless effort. For once, his guarded demeanor softened. He let a quiet sigh escape his lips, his chest loosening under the wave of satisfaction. Building something that is truly yours does help clear the mind, he whispered, almost as though reassuring himself. Then his eyes sharpened, returning to focus. But this is only the foundation. The real test lies ahead. Time to work on the teleportation gates. He turned to the massive holographic screen hovering in the air, displaying intricate lines of data and glowing diagrams provided by the Omniversal Grid. Strings of light scrolled endlessly like a living organism, weaving equations, energy flows, and runic-like formulas beyond human comprehension. Even for Zane, an 18-year-old genius whose intelligence was praised as bordering on inhuman, there were terms here that startled him. Unknown sequences. Unfamiliar notations. It was as if the universe itself whispered secrets too ancient for Earth to grasp. But despite his surprise, his eyes burned with determination. Comprehension would come. He would master these mysteries in time. He crossed his arms, a thoughtful frown pulling at his lips as his right hand subconsciously stroked his imaginary beard, a habit he had carried since his younger years. So this is what we're dealing with, he muttered, his voice low but steady. Long-distance, interplanetary-grade teleportation gates as the initial construction framework. Which means further enhancement is possible. Far beyond even this. A gateway network that could evolve endlessly. His lips curved into a faint, astonished grin. Remarkable. With a gesture, he called upon the grid's loyal assistants. Alpha, accelerate the sequence equation within the simulation. I need as many testing results as possible before I commit to construction. Affirmative, answered a clear, feminine robotic voice that echoed crisply through the silent chamber. Beside him, a humanoid machine with polished silver plating raised its head, faint blue light running through its circuits. Alpha, his first constructed AI partner, turned her artificial gaze toward a floating orb hovering lazily nearby. Kara, boost my processing efficiency by 400%. The orb pulsed in acknowledgement, glowing with a soft white light. Noted, Kara's sweet and airy voice chimed, calm yet filled with warmth. The simulation immediately responded. Teleportation simulation sequence initiated, boosting construction speed by 400%. Lines of glowing numbers ran across the screen as geometric shapes rotated and overlapped in complex harmony. The very air buzzed faintly, as if the surrounding energy bent in response to the grid's unseen hand. Simulation Result 1. Failed. Cause. Terminal overloaded. Zane clicked his tongue softly. TCH. Reduce construction speed by 10%. Rerun. The machine obeyed. Simulation Result 2. Failed. Cause. Identical overload. Simulation Result 3. Failed. The pattern continued. Again and again, Alpha and Kara worked tirelessly, cycling through variations at Zane's command. He never once flinched, though frustration flickered faintly across his eyes. 30 trials passed, each failure chiseling away at the margins of error until finally. Simulation Result 31. Success. Portal running at maximum efficiency. The chamber resonated with a deep, harmonious hum. Zane froze, his apple halfway to his mouth. Then his eyes widened in delight as he clenched his fist triumphantly. Yes, he exclaimed mid-bite, nearly choking on the fruit in his excitement. Alpha's voice rang with calm precision. Affirmative, sir. Simulation confirmed successful. Kara floated in a slow orbit around Zane's head, glowing faintly brighter in what could almost be interpreted as joy. He leaned back in his chair, chewed the last of the apple, and tossed the core into a nearby trash pulverizer that vaporized it instantly into harmless motes of light. Standing, he stretched his body, cracking his shoulders with a satisfied groan. Time to build this bad boy for real. His command echoed with unshakable certainty. Grid, begin construction sequence. Affirmative. The atmosphere within the chamber shifted instantly. A deep whir roared into existence as raw materials began to manifest out of thin air, pulled directly through dimensional storage the grid had prepared. Metallic ores, crystalline fragments, exotic alloys, and rare elements that Earth itself could not have produced appeared and floated weightlessly above the ground. Zane's eyes glimmered as he witnessed the surreal process. The materials began melting without fire, hammered by invisible forces, shaped as though celestial blacksmiths worked unseen. Every piece was refined to perfection. The smell of ozone and molten metal mixed in the air, and streams of glowing light interlocked the parts in methodical fashion. It was art sculpted by the hands of gods. From his perspective, the half-formed construct resembled the beginning of a wormhole generator, its surface lined with glowing patterns that pulsed faintly, almost breathing. According to the simulations, this was only the first stage of a grand network. For now, the wormhole would remain dormant, invisible unless activated by command. Zane crossed his arms and allowed a rare smile to linger on his face. No matter how many times I see this, I'll never grow tired of watching creation unfold like this. And he meant it. There were few things that could inspire awe in him anymore, yet this spectacle of impossible engineering stirred him deeply. 3 hours passed within the confines of the base. 3 hours in which time felt suspended, measured only by the construction's rhythm. When at last the process concluded, the teleportation gate stood completed. It towered at the center of the chamber, perfectly symmetrical, humming with restrained energy. Dozens of coordinates were already linked, marking locations across the small world Zane currently inhabited. Every destination ready, every route stable. He extended both arms outward, standing before it like a conductor before his orchestra, and with a grin that carried both pride and madness, he whispered, "Now, this is perfect. All right, enough with the cringe pose." Far away, on a silent road untouched by heavy traffic, the distant roar of a motorcycle thundered closer. Its sound grew steadily until at last the vehicle emerged, an early 2000s Honda Spirit 1,100 cubic centimeters. Except this one was different. It had been heavily modified, rebuilt with modernized parts, its sleek black frame and polished chrome gleaming like a predator under the fading light. The rider pulled to a stop before a road sign marked with bold letters, Briarwood. For a long moment, he simply sat there, the engine rumbling beneath him, his helmet hiding his expression. Then slowly, he removed it. A single green eye gleamed sharply, his lips curling into a thin smile as he muttered to himself. "So, this is Briarwood, huh?" The wind carried his words into the stillness. He studied the sign as though testing its weight, letting the syllables settle into his mind. Finally, he gave the side of his motorcycle a few light taps, almost like patting the flank of a loyal beast, and swung back fully onto the seat. "Let's get you fixed up first, old friend." With no hesitation, he revved the engine and sped into the city, his figure swallowed by the horizon. Elsewhere, hidden deep within a forest that reeked of unease, a structure rose from the earth. The trees themselves seemed twisted, their branches clawing like skeletal hands at the mist-choked sky. This was no ordinary forest. Shadows clung unnaturally to the undergrowth, and the air itself carried the faint hiss of whispers that had no speaker. At the heart of this unsettling place stood an ancient dragon head, carved from stone, its maw opened wide as though it were a gateway into some other world. Its eyes glowed a menacing red, watching silently. Inside, in a chamber where magic and technology entwined unnaturally, a lone figure draped in black knelt before a massive altar. Her hands pressed firmly upon a grimoire bound in scales and chains. As if in answer to her touch, the tome burst with radiant light. The chains rattled and fell loose, the book opening itself with violent force until its pages stopped. Words appeared upon the parchment, glowing and shifting, readable only to her eyes. She trembled as she read, her hood shadowing her face. Finally, She shook her head in disbelief, her voice breaking into a hoarse whisper. Darkness has reappeared. The seal weakens. It is time to find the chosen ones. The chamber's atmosphere thickened. Before the echo of her words could fade, her body dissolved into mist, vanishing as though she had never been. The grimoire remained behind, its pages still glowing with unreadable text, waiting for the next to discover its secret. As if destiny itself moved in rhythm with her prophecy, the forest groaned. Crack! The earth tore open violently, the sound splitting the silence like thunder. A massive fissure spread across the ground, swallowing trees and stone as the land shook. The quake rippled outward, reaching the nearby city. Buildings rattled, windows shattered, and terrified civilians clutched the ground as chaos erupted. From the heart of the fissure, darkness rose. Not mere absence of light, but a thick, oppressive void. It pulsed with power wrong and unnatural. Within the depths of the crack lay another world entirely, a banished realm. A world abandoned. Forgotten. A prison for abominations that defied all sense of nature. Grotesque creatures writhed in the shadows, their forms half seen, half imagined, as if reality itself refused to hold them in clarity. And at the center of that abyss, something stirred. An eye vast enough to consume the entire rift, opening slowly, its surface burning like molten coal, its gaze filled with hunger older than the stars. When it blinked, the forest screamed. And then, in a voice that shook the banished realm itself, it declared, "It is time." The words reverberated like a curse, carrying hunger, fury, and the promise of destruction. The forest was wrong. Its silence didn't feel natural, like the usual calm one might expect in the wilderness. No, this silence had weight. The kind that made your chest tighten and your skin crawl as though unseen eyes followed every move. So, whose bright idea again was it to help that old man? The frustrated voice cut through the stillness. Vita Raka, beautiful but sharp-edged like shattered glass, adjusted her pink jacket with visible irritation. Her glare landed on the leather-jacketed boy at the front. Well, it was definitely Mr. Tough Guy over here, she grumbled, pointing with a jab of her finger, her tone dripping with blame. Nick Russell, messy-haired, leather jacket, the very picture of someone who thought too highly of himself, gave her a look. His jaw tightened. Before he could respond, a cheerful, almost annoyingly upbeat voice chimed in. Well, look at the bright side, guys. We might encounter something worth adventuring. Chip Thorne, the group's resident ball of energy, practically bounced as he spoke. His eyes glimmered with genuine excitement, as though they weren't lost in a forest that felt like it belonged in someone's nightmare. Madison Raka, quieter and more thoughtful than her sister, shot him an exasperated look, running a hand through her dark hair. I couldn't even get a signal for my phone, she said tiredly. This isn't an adventure, Chip. It's a disaster. Toby is definitely gonna kill me if we ever make it back. Nick exhaled through his nose, running a hand down his face before finally replying with the same frustration Vita threw at him. Look, I never told you guys to volunteer. You all just butted in because you couldn't resist playing hero. Now Miss Barbie here is blaming me. Vita's face soured immediately. Her steps stopped for a moment as she turned sharply to face him, venom in her glare. Who the fuck are you calling Barbie, retail Terminator? And FYI, I hate the color pink. Her voice echoed, louder than it should have been in the suffocating quiet. Nick didn't back down, his lips quirking in a smirk like he'd won some sort of small victory. The two were nose to nose now, their tempers hot enough to burn away the strange coldness of the forest. But before it could escalate, Xander Bly, dressed in his usual green with an air of "I'm cooler than all of you," stepped forward, putting himself between them. All right, guys. Fighting won't solve anything." His tone was calm but firm. He turned toward Nick, hands raised in something of a peacekeeping gesture. "How about this, dude? Let's start with introductions. You, tough guy. What's your name? Maybe if we stop biting at each other, we can actually figure out how to get out of this forsaken place." Nick gave him a long look, silent for several seconds before finally replying, his voice low. Nick Russell. Cool, cool, Xander nodded twice, clearly satisfied like he'd just struck gold. Name's Xander Bly, mate. The energy shifted slightly. My turn, Chip announced, raising his hand as though they were back in school. Call me Chip. Chip Thorne. Vita Raka, the pink-clad girl muttered dismissively, still simmering from her spat with Nick. Madison smiled tiredly, brushing invisible dirt off her jacket. Madison Raka. Vita's sister. For a moment, they stood there, 5 strangers, forced into the same boat, surrounded by a forest that felt alive in all the wrong ways. Xander clapped his hands, breaking the moment. Perfect. Now that we're officially acquainted, let's figure out a way to get out of this place. Everyone come closer. They shuffled into a circle, their unease momentarily pushed aside. So here's the plan, Xander began, his hands moving animatedly as he spoke. We move from here, spread out in different directions, keep within earshot, and scream for help if we find anything. Easy. 5 minutes later. Vita raised a brow, arms crossed, her voice laced with disbelief. Guys, do you really think this plan's gonna work in the middle of a freaking cursed forest? Xander scratched his head, visibly confused. I hiked a lot, okay? It should work. There's no difference between this forest and the ones I camp at. Nick laughed dryly, patting Xander's shoulder with exaggerated sympathy. Dude, our phones don't even get a signal here. How the hell is this the same as some weekend hiking trail? And basically, your genius plan boils down to splitting up and screaming for help. Like, who the fuck would wander into this forest willingly? Chip grinned nervously. Well, technically we did. Shut up, Chip, Vita and Nick said at the same time. Madison, her patience finally thinning, stepped in. Look, I think it's better if we stick together. This place is weird. We saw an ant the size of my arm earlier. I'm not about to run into something worse alone. Yeah, she's right, Xander admitted, scratching the back of his neck. I tried marking our path on the trees earlier. Couldn't even scratch the bark. These things are like stone. A heavy silence fell over them. For once, no one had a comeback. The weight of where they were finally sank in. Then, crunch, all 5 of them froze. Heads whipped toward the sound, eyes wide. The forest held its silence again. Probably just a squirrel. At least, that's what 4 of them told themselves. Guys, do you see that? Chip's shaky voice broke the stillness. Vita groaned, already annoyed. Chip, this is not the time. No, I mean it. Look. Behind that tree. Chip pointed, his hand trembling. Nick frowned, his sharp gaze following. Then, crunch, whoosh. A shadow darted between the trees. Too fast. Too inhuman. Guys. Madison whispered, her voice trembling. What was that? Maybe a monkey? Xander offered, though the doubt in his tone was clear. Nick shot him a look. Smart guy, I've never seen a monkey move that fast. Whoosh. This time, Vita saw it clearly. A dark blur slipping past the tree line. Her heart spiked. Run, she screamed. Nobody hesitated. Instinct overrode reason. Branches snapped under their desperate feet as they bolted through the woods, lungs burning, hearts hammering. Fuck. I just wanted to get my bike fixed. Nick cursed as he ran, dodging a tree by inches. Don't look back, just keep running. Xander's voice was firm, sharp. No need to tell me twice. Vita snapped, grabbing Madison's wrist. Maddie, Chip, keep up. Madison nodded, eyes wide. Chip, however, was already struggling. His breaths came ragged, his shorter legs barely keeping pace. They ran like their lives depended on it, because they did. For 4 agonizing minutes, they sprinted through the endless forest, despair creeping into their faces. Then, guys, I see an exit. Nick's voice rang with hope. Their eyes shot forward. It wasn't an exit. Not exactly. It shimmered like liquid glass suspended in midair, pulsing faintly with light. Portal, Chip gasped, half in awe, half in terror. No one wanted to believe him, but it was right there. Madison's voice trembled, but carried a pleading edge. Look, guys, I say we risk it. That's our only way out. Xander looked at the others. To his surprise, they all nodded without hesitation. How far? Vita demanded. 1 minute of running. Nick barked back. They pushed harder. But when Chip glanced behind, his heart dropped. The shadow wasn't just following. It was closing in. Guys, it's almost on us, he shouted, panic cracking his voice. Fuck. Vita screamed. I'm not dying here. Her legs pumped faster. The others matched her pace. We jump on 3. Xander shouted. The shadow stretched closer. 1. It almost reached Chip's shoulder. 2. Closer still. Cold, heavy air wrapped around them. 3. They leapt together, diving headfirst into the portal. Whoosh! The world warped. Behind them, the shadow stopped at the portal's edge, tilting its head in confusion. It waited, red eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Then, without a sound, it turned and disappeared into the trees. The other side. Groans echoed as bodies hit the ground, limbs tangled and aching. Ugh, my back, Chip wheezed, clutching his spine dramatically. The group staggered to their feet, brushing dirt and leaves off themselves. Okay, Xander groaned, stretching his sore limbs. We scout first. Then we. He stopped. They all stopped. Their eyes widened as they took in their new surroundings. Is that what I think it is? Madison's voice trembled. The others followed her gaze. High above, scales glistened like molten metal. A massive creature uncurled, its shadow blanketing them. Gulp. The sound was unanimous. Chip's hand shot forward, pointing. His lips quivered. Dragon. Elsewhere. A throne room of shadows. A suffocating darkness filled the air. On a black throne, a figure sat motionless, red eyes glowing like embers. Its mouth curled into a smile, its teeth sharp in the gloom. Oh, the light has arrived. Its voice dripped with malice, deep and resonant. Hee, more magic to consume. More hope to shatter. More chaos to unfold. Its words echoed with arrogance, vibrating through the stone walls. And soon, that thing will be entirely under my control. But first, I must summon the elves. And that bitch, Amora. Its laugh thundered in the throne room, reverberating like an omen. The faster I move, the more chaos I bring. And the more chaos, the more powerful I become. Ha ha ha. The darkness shook with its laughter. Asgard. A throne room opposite, in tone radiant, noble, adorned with treasures fit for gods. Upon a smaller throne sat a woman of divine beauty. Golden hair framed her delicate features. Her name, Freya. Wife of Odin. Queen of Asgard. Her expression was serene, but a small smile tugged at her lips. So, Udana has finally found the light. She paused. The smile faded. Her eyes grew distant, heavy with worry. I only pray it will be enough to halt Ragnarok. Her hands tightened on the armrest of her throne, nails pressing into the golden metal. Alas, she whispered, voice trembling with rare vulnerability. Fate is almost impossible to change. Her gaze drifted beyond the throne room, far across Asgard, into the unknown. Dragon. Yeah, we see it, dimwit, Vita snapped, her voice sharp with irritation, though her eyes betrayed the same unease the rest of them felt. Chip's face, however, wasn't pale with fear, it was flushed with excitement, his eyes shining like a kid on Christmas morning. Why you don't get it, he stammered, pointing at the towering statue. This dragon, the way its body looks like it's carved from bone, it proves it. It proves my theories about magic existing are right. He darted toward Vita, grabbing her hands tightly, his voice trembling with joy. This is incredible. I've finally witnessed real magic. Vita yanked her hands back in mild disgust, her face scrunching. TCH. What are you even fussing about? We've already seen Rangers fighting gigantic monsters on the news. This isn't anything new. Chip opened his mouth, ready to argue, but then paused. He thought about it. Monsters had shown up before, true. Still, his lips twitched as he mumbled under his breath, well, I still think magic is way cooler. The others didn't bother responding. They let the silence hang, dismissing Chip's outburst as one of his typical nerdy rants. All 5 turned their eyes to the massive statue that loomed in the middle of the expanse. It was ancient, worn, yet eerily lifelike, as if at any moment it might breathe. Its gaping jaws were frozen in mid-roar, its wings stretched out as though ready to take flight. The sheer scale of it made them feel small, insignificant. For a long moment, awe and fear kept their voices down. Then Madison broke the silence, her soft voice carrying an edge of uncertainty. "So, what do we do now, guys? Do we move forward or go back?" She nervously pulled out her phone, snapping a few pictures of the statue, though her hands trembled as she did. Chip immediately piped up. "Forward. What if we find a wizard? What if he bestows us with magic powers, and then we get to fight alongside dragons, and maybe..." He kept ranting, his imagination spiraling, his arms waving excitedly as he painted scenarios in the air. The others ignored him. Nick pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing heavily. If he'd known helping that old man would dump him in a nightmare world full of freaky statues and endless forests, he'd have told the geezer to shove off. "I think," Xander said, stretching his arms behind his head lazily, "that we should stay here for now and set up camp. There don't seem to be any animals around. Might be safer." "Yeah," Nick admitted reluctantly, scanning the area. "There's enough dry wood and leaves. We could make a fire and put up some shelter." Vida and Madison nodded in agreement. Their eyes, however, drifted to Chip, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, muttering something about arcane sigils and mana reserves with the dazed look of someone lost in fantasy. Suddenly, Chip stiffened. A shiver ran up his spine like claws dragging against it. He could swear something was staring at him from behind. Whipping around, he found nothing. Only shadows. Embarrassed, he turned back to the group and coughed. "Cough, cough, so, what's the plan again, guys?" Vida smirked cruelly, walked over, and gave him a few swift kicks to the backside. "The plan, Dundo, is that you're helping us gather wood." "Ow. Ow. Okay. Chip yelped, scrambling to his feet, rubbing his sore cheeks. "No need to hit so hard." For the next 20 minutes, they gathered dried wood and leaves, carrying them back to the clearing where the dragon statue loomed. They worked as a makeshift team, though tempers flared occasionally. The only one not lifting a finger was Xander, who lounged against a tree with a self-satisfied smirk, spinning a twig between his fingers. Nick finally snapped. "Dude, why the fuck aren't you helping?" Xander shrugged lazily. "What do you mean I'm not helping?" "I'm supervising. Management, dude." He gestured toward the pile of wood as though his presence alone had doubled their progress. Vida and Madison exchanged a glance. Without a word, they walked up, cracking their knuckles menacingly. Xander's eyes widened. "Wait, hey, calm down, ladies, no need for violence." But the look in their eyes told him they weren't bluffing. He chuckled nervously, springing to his feet. All right, I get it. I'll help, geez." He darted off before they could swing, knowing from experience they wouldn't hesitate to smack him around. Toby's shop had taught him that lesson more than once. 2 hours later. The forest was dark, the kind of dark that pressed in on you, suffocating, endless. Their only comfort was the small fire crackling at the center of their camp, its glow painting their tired faces with warmth and shadows. They sat in a rough circle, their bodies aching, their stomachs empty. Grumble. Chip clutched his belly dramatically. "Ugh, I'm so hungry," he whined, letting his head droop against his knees. Vida groaned. "You're not the only one, idiot. We're all starving." Nick rubbed his stomach too, reluctantly admitting she's right. "Haven't eaten since this morning. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd even kill for one sandwich." Even Xander, usually smug, looked drained. "Man, I'd settle for instant noodles right now. Not picky." Madison looked at all of them quietly, then smiled softly. Her voice, calm and gentle, broke through their shared misery. "Okay, I know we're all tired and hungry, but maybe instead of sitting here sulking, we could talk? You know, about ourselves. It might take our minds off things." The fire popped, filling the silence. One by one, the others glanced at each other. Vida sighed first. "Fine. But don't expect me to spill my whole life story." She flicked her hair back. "I'm Vida. Obviously. I work at the Rockporium with Madison. DJ gigs mostly. Music's my thing. Don't care what anyone says about it. Cool, Xander nodded, smirking. Guess I'll go next. Xander Bly. The guy who keeps things together around here. You've probably noticed I've got natural leadership skills. Nick rolled his eyes so hard it hurt. Leadership skills my ass. Hey, easy there, dude, Xander said, raising his hands in mock surrender. I'm just saying I know how to handle people. Ask Toby. Madison chuckled faintly, then glanced at Chip. Chip perked up. Me? Well, I'm Chip Thorne. Huge fantasy buff, obviously. Comics, D&D, video games. Always believed magic was real. And guess what? Totally called it. He grinned proudly, gesturing toward the dragon statue. I mean, come on. Proof. Vita muttered, nerd. Better than being cranky all the time, Chip shot back, though his grin didn't fade. They all looked at Nick next. He leaned back, arms crossed, his face shadowed by the firelight. Nick. That's it. Nothing to say. The mood threatened to dip. But Madison leaned forward, her eyes warm, encouraging. Come on. Just a little? Doesn't have to be deep. Nick hesitated, then sighed, rubbing his temple. Fine. Grew up moving around a lot. Never stayed in one place long. Bikes are my thing. That's all you're getting. It wasn't much, but it was something. The others didn't push. For a moment, they sat there in relative peace. Talking, joking lightly, letting the firelight ease their nerves. For a brief while, they almost felt like normal young adults hanging out. Then the air shifted. At first, it was subtle, a breeze brushing against their faces. But it didn't stop. It grew stronger. Nick's eyes narrowed. Wait. You guys feel that? The wind whipped harder, rustling the trees violently. The fire sputtered, nearly dying. Yeah, Vita muttered, standing up. This isn't normal. All five rose to their feet, alert. Their eyes darted around the clearing, their bodies tense. The dragon statue loomed above them, its shadow stretching impossibly far. Then, its eyes lit up. A deep, glowing red. The sight rooted them in place, fear surging through their veins like ice water. Before anyone could scream, the statue's gaping maw glowed. A swirling golden portal formed within its throat, radiating an unnatural hum that vibrated in their bones. Then the pull began. The portal sucked at the air like a monstrous vacuum, its force targeting them directly. What the hell is happening? Xander shouted, his voice barely audible over the roaring wind. Run! Vita screamed, grabbing Madison's hand. They sprinted, but the pull was relentless. Leaves, twigs, even stones ripped from the ground and vanished into the light. Nick dug his heels into the dirt, grabbing Chip's arm to anchor him. Chip screamed, clutching at Nick desperately. I can't hold on. Chip cried, his feet dragging toward the portal. Don't you dare let go. Nick barked, his own muscles straining as the wind whipped his hair into his face. Madison clung to Vita, her nails digging into her sister's jacket. I don't want to die here. None of us are dying. Vita yelled, though her voice cracked with fear. Their hearts pounded. The force only grew stronger. One by one, their grips began to slip. For a brief moment, silence cut through the chaos. Each of them realized the same terrifying truth. This might be the end. Guys. Chip's voice broke, high with fear. Don't say it. Nick snapped, his own fear burning behind his eyes. The pull became unbearable. One by one, their feet left the ground, their screams piercing the air as they were yanked toward the glowing maw of the dragon. Their last sight was each other, faces twisted in terror, hands outstretched, desperately trying to hold on. Then, whoosh! The portal swallowed them whole. And the clearing fell silent. Only the dragon remained, its red eyes dimming back to lifeless stone. The house was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence that welcomes sleep, but the heavy, blank stillness that seemed to swallow even the faintest of sounds. In the middle of that silence, space itself twisted. A faint ripple, followed by the swirling hum of a vortex, tore open inside Zane's living room. The colors of reality bent into an unstable spiral, shimmering with violet and silver light before stabilizing. Out of the vortex stepped Zane. He yawned heavily, dragging a hand over his face as though trying to massage away the fatigue that clung to him. His usually sharp eyes were dulled with exhaustion, the mental strain of his earlier excursion still weighing on him. With a low sigh, he plopped down into the nearest seat, his body sinking deep into the cushions. He groaned, rotating his shoulders. That was both good and mentally taxing. It's a good thing time runs differently there. His voice, though casual, carried that tired rasp of someone who had stretched both body and spirit beyond their limits. For a few minutes, the house returned to silence. The only sound was the soft rhythm of Zane's breathing, steady and calm. He tilted his head back against the chair, eyes half-lidded, thoughts drifting toward his bed. His muscles begged for rest. But before he could move, a sharp ringing sound echoed in the room. Ding! A transparent panel materialized before him, glowing faintly in the dim light. Lines of text scrolled across it, accompanied by a solemn chime, as though the very universe was recognizing his efforts. Congratulations to Master for taking the first step to protecting the Omniverse. To encourage the Master, the grid shall bestow certain props. Zane's tired eyes widened slightly. He leaned forward, interest sparking back into him. The next set of notifications appeared. Congratulations to Master for obtaining Ranger base contract. 30,000 GP. Ranger spaceship, S-level. Secret information about this reality. Whoa, Zane almost shouted, the fatigue evaporating from his voice. He straightened up, his tiredness replaced with a bubbling excitement that he didn't bother hiding. That's really nice of you, Grid. The grin tugging at the corners of his lips was the genuine kind, the type born from a pleasant surprise. For once, it wasn't just the weight of responsibility pressing on him. This was a reward, something tangible, something good. Grid, explanations please, he asked quickly, his tone almost anxious, as if afraid the rewards might vanish if he didn't confirm them immediately. The panel shifted, and the crisp, neutral voice of the Grid echoed in his mind. Affirmative. Ranger base contract. This contract is to be used for the recruitment or employment of prospective Ranger or superhero forces into the newly constructed base. It also prevents betrayal, mind or soul reading, and fate or reality control. GP. For buying items in the Grid shop. Ranger spaceship. This is a specialized Ranger spaceship for traversing the galaxy or starry sky. It is one of the most powerful spaceships in the current galaxy, powered by Morphin energy. For a brief moment, Zane almost forgot to breathe. He usually prided himself on being composed, but this time, his self-control cracked. His jaw dropped slightly, and a half-choked laugh escaped him. Oh, sweet heavens! He muttered, pressing a hand against his mouth to stifle the instinctive yell threatening to burst out of him. He clenched his fists tightly, trying to restrain the overflowing excitement coursing through his veins. This is more than I expected. The sheer implications of what he'd been given were staggering. With the contract, I won't have to worry about betrayal by future recruits, he whispered to himself, already analyzing. No more situations like Hydra infiltrations, no more androids stabbing us in the back. And it's not just for me, it benefits them too. They won't be constrained by the rules or laws of this reality. Absolute loyalty without chains. Freedom, but secure. His eyes flickered with determination. That single contract was enough to change the foundation of everything he was planning to build. Still buzzing with excitement, he pulled up the next reward from the Grid interface. The image of the spaceship unfolded in a holographic projection before him. And what he saw nearly made his heart stop. The ship was massive, sleek, and elegant in design, its metallic hull shimmering with a faint crystalline sheen of Morphin energy. Layered armor plates curved into an aerodynamic body, etched with intricate channels of glowing blue lines. Along the sides, cannon ports pulsed faintly, almost alive, like veins carrying raw power. Damn, Zane breathed out. His eyes widened further as the Grid's data feed filled his vision. Specifications: planetary-level laser cannon, wormhole traversal system, faster-than-light engines, resistant to all non-corrosive matter and antimatter, capable of withstanding cosmic-level attacks without structural damage. He read the specs twice, his lips parting in sheer disbelief. "This bad boy," he whispered. His voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with awe. "Is a weapon of mass destruction." Images flashed in his mind, entire fleets disintegrating under its cannon fire, wormholes opening in an instant to traverse impossible distances, cosmic entities striking it only for their attacks to glance off harmlessly. Zane shook his head, running a hand through his hair, half laughing at the absurdity of what he now possessed. This can't be used lightly," he muttered. "Only if the mission truly requires it. Otherwise, it's too much." Despite his excitement, he wasn't blinded by it. The ship was too powerful, too dangerous to flaunt casually. It was a trump card, a deterrent, the kind of thing you held back until there was absolutely no other choice. But even knowing that, the thrill of having such a weapon under his command filled him with a heady rush of confidence. Finally, his eyes drifted toward the last reward. Secret information. His earlier excitement dimmed slightly, replaced by curiosity and a subtle heaviness in his chest. Unlike the other rewards, this one felt different, not a gift, but a responsibility. "What's this supposed to be?" he murmured, brows furrowing. "Secret information?" He hesitated only a moment before asking aloud, "Grid, explain." The response came instantly. "Master, the Grid shall explain some important information about this current reality to you. This information is extremely important and hardly known by anyone. They are so important, they could bring salvation to this reality, or end it." The words sank into him like lead weights. Zane straightened, his earlier excitement cooling into something sharper, heavier. A part of him wanted to brush it off, to cling to the rewards and enjoy them. But deep inside, he already knew there would always be a cost, always a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. That's sensitive, huh?" His voice was low, cautious. "Yes, Master." For a long moment, Zane sat silently. His fingers tapped against the armrest of the chair, his sharp gaze narrowed in deep thought. The weight of the unknown pressed on him, and for once, he almost wished he didn't have to hear it. Almost. But he had already accepted this mission. Already taken the first step on a path that had no return. Whether he wanted to or not, he had to see it through. He exhaled slowly, closing his eyes for a moment before opening them again with renewed clarity. "Go on, Grid," he said firmly. His tone no longer carried hesitation. "No matter how bad the current situation is, I won't give up." He smiled faintly, bitter but determined. "Because who else is going to do it but me? What's the alternative? Sit around and let everything collapse? No, that's not me." The faintest memory of a certain billionaire playboy flickered in his mind, a man who had seen his own future and spiraled into paranoia and depression. Zane clenched his jaw. He couldn't afford to be like that. "Go ahead, Grid. Tell me." The panel flickered, preparing to reveal truths that few in the Omniverse had ever dared to glimpse. The panel brightened, and the Grid's voice echoed within the silent house, calm yet carrying an almost sacred resonance. "The first thing to know is this: the Infinity Stones are not the most powerful treasures in this multiverse. Their power pales in comparison to another artifact, the Book of Magic." Zane blinked. His brows shot upward. What Book of Magic?" "Yes, Master. The Mystic Force Book of Magic." For a moment, his mind refused to process it. He shot to his feet, the chair scraping faintly across the floor. Wait. He held up his hands as if he could physically halt the Grid's words. "You don't mean that grimoire from Mystic Force, the one that gave the Rangers their abilities through magic? That thing? It wasn't even shown to be that powerful in the series." His voice cracked slightly with disbelief. He could accept powerful artifacts, sure. But that book? That was supposed to be little more than a glorified spell source. The Grid, unfazed, continued. "Master, this is not a series. This is not fiction. This is a living, breathing reality. The Book of Magic is no ordinary relic. It is the primordial artifact responsible for governing all sources of pure magic in this world. It is unmatched, created by the Tree of Life itself." Zane froze. His pulse thudded in his ears. the Tree of Life, a concept older than myth itself. Even in the fragmented knowledge he carried, the idea of such an origin was staggering. The implications settled over him like a suffocating blanket. The grid pressed on, its words sharp and unyielding. Unlike other magical conduits, the Book of Magic gives and never takes back. Its nature is absolute, akin to the fundamental entities of the Marvel Universe. It holds reality and fate-altering abilities. Every known element of magic flows through its pages. It has been coveted by the highest races and gods alike. Wars have been waged for its ownership. At one point, its existence was the catalyst for the destruction of an entire universe. Furthermore, within its pages dwell the primal laws: life, time, space, and death. It is an artifact bordering on omniscience. To be chosen by it is to wield creation itself. The grid's voice quieted slightly, though no less heavy. Finally, should one gain its approval, they would be granted the laws of creation. Silence. Utter silence. Zane's mouth hung slightly open, his thoughts spiraling out of control. He staggered back a step, sinking into the chair again. His hand pressed against his forehead, as though grounding himself against the onslaught of revelations. "Damn," he whispered. Then louder, his voice breaking into disbelief. "Damn. What the fuck? Who allowed this? The OA? Gridmasters?" His laugh came out harsh and unsteady, more a bark than anything. For some protagonists, this is an overpowered cheat. This is the kind of thing that breaks entire stories. He leaned back, staring up at the ceiling as if it could offer him answers. His chest rose and fell rapidly, the sheer absurdity crashing over him. And yet, beneath his sarcasm and frustration, there was fear. A deep, gnawing unease. "Grid," he said slowly, forcing his voice calm. "Where is that artifact now?" The answer came swift and merciless. "It is being protected by the Mystic Force magicians." Zane rubbed his chin, his brows drawn tight. His sharp expression returned, replacing his momentary panic with calculation. "The Mystic Force, right? They've got the Rangers and Udana. But that's it, right? Can they really protect something that powerful?" "Yes, they can. Currently, they have over 5,000 students in magical training." Zane's eyes widened again. His jaw nearly dropped. "Over 5,000? He shot upright. "You're telling me Udana's not just running a quaint little academy in the forest anymore. She's running an army of magicians?" He paced the room, running both hands through his hair. The image formed in his mind, not the handful of Mystic Force members he remembered, but legions of robes and staffs, chanting in unison, the earth trembling under their combined will. "Oh wow," he muttered. "Over 5,000. That makes sense, though. This isn't the clean-cut Little Power Rangers series anymore. This is the Marvel Universe stitched together with their world. Of course, they'd expand. They'd need numbers. Hell, they'd need everyone." He exhaled, pacing back and forth, mind racing. The Book of Magic. An artifact that could bend life and death, rewrite time, alter fate itself. Protected by thousands of magicians. Desired by gods and demons alike. And it was sitting there, somewhere in this fragile reality, waiting. Zane stopped pacing. He braced both hands on the back of the chair, his head lowered, his shoulders tense. His lips pressed into a thin line. This was bigger than him. Bigger than anything he had expected to face this early on. But it was reality, his reality now. "So, is that all the information?" he asked finally, his voice steady but quieter. "Or is there more?" The panel pulsed once, and the grid answered. "There is one more piece of information. It will help Master prepare for future invasions and the protection of this reality." Zane lifted his head, eyes narrowing. His heartbeat quickened, not from excitement, but from a sense of looming crisis. "Go on." Then the grid's voice deepened, each word echoing like thunder across the silent room. The grid's voice carried an authority that seemed to press against the very air of the room. Currently, the factions in this universe are divided into 5 dominant forces: humans, machina, Zerg, demons, and gods. Each faction has its own leaders, armies, and territories governing the balance of the entire cosmos. Zane's body stilled. He focused completely, every trace of fatigue vanishing under the sharp edge of tension. The human race, the grid continued, is the weakest of the five, yet the one with the greatest potential. They exist not only on Earth, but also scattered across multiple planets. Terra Venture on Miranoi. Corinth, a planet plagued by the Vengex virus. Countless colonies tucked away in corners of the galaxy. The Machina race stands as a faction of cold, mechanical order. Their armies stretch across countless star systems, their technology evolving without end. One of their high generals is Vengex, a virus that once consumed an entire world and now commands legions. Zane inhaled sharply, his eyes narrowing. Vengex, of course he'd be part of something bigger. The grid pressed on, its words heavy. The Zerg are a swarm unlike any other. Insectoid, hive-minded, relentless. Their numbers blot out the stars when they march. They consume, assimilate, and adapt at terrifying speeds. Alone, they rival empires. Together, they can shatter worlds. Images flared in Zane's mind, unbidden. Skies darkened by wings, entire planets stripped bare, screams drowned in the endless chittering of the swarm. His fists clenched at his sides. The demon race is older than most stars. They thrive on corruption and destruction, their leaders ancient beyond comprehension. They command armies forged in the pits of countless hells. Their cruelty knows no limit. A bitter taste coated Zane's tongue. He didn't need much imagination for that. He had already seen glimpses of Marvel's hell dimensions, and adding Power Rangers demons into the mix was a recipe for absolute chaos. Finally, the God race. Beings who walk above mortals, drenched in power that defies logic. Some rule with benevolence, others with tyranny. Together with the demon race, they hold the top spot in this cosmic hierarchy. The grid's tone dropped, colder, graver. These races are led by supreme beings of unimaginable strength. Their combat power transcends mortal scales. Each one possesses might capable of sundering civilizations with a gesture. And they have set their sights on Earth. The final words hung like a guillotine above Zane's head. He sat there, eyes closed, his face composed, but inside, a storm raged. His thoughts crashed into one another, flashes of scenarios, probabilities, strategies, failures. To say he wasn't anxious would have been a lie. His body felt taut, stretched thin under the sheer enormity of what lay ahead. Humans. The weakest of the factions. A race scattered and unprepared. Even with their terrifying potential, what good was potential without time? Without time to grow, to prepare, to unify, humanity was a lamb thrown into a pit of wolves. His jaw tightened. He knew the truth too well. Talent and willpower could only carry you so far. Without enough time to mature, even the brightest flame could be snuffed out before it had the chance to ignite the world. The grid's voice softened. For now, they cannot act. Their hands are stayed by two pillars, the Ancient One and the Mystic Force's supreme leader, Udana. That name again. Udana. Protectress, sorceress, teacher. She stood like a lone mountain against the crashing tide of cosmic predators. Zane opened his eyes slowly. They were steady, calm, but behind them flickered a weight he couldn't fully conceal. So that's how it is, he whispered. His heart pounded in his chest, but his voice carried only quiet resolve. Grid, thanks for the information. He exhaled deeply, shoulders loosening slightly. This shows me just how hard I'll have to work in the future. There was no sarcasm, no forced grin. Just sincerity. It is my duty, Master. The panel dimmed, leaving only the faint glow of the night outside. Zane stood, walking toward the door. His steps were slow, deliberate, each one grounding him against the maelstrom of thoughts in his mind. The door creaked open, and the cool night air embraced him. Above, the sky stretched wide, endless, and jeweled with countless stars. They shimmered faintly, like eternal watchers, uncaring and yet achingly beautiful. Zane lifted a hand, stretching it toward the heavens. His fingers curled as if trying to grasp the distant lights. His voice was soft, almost a prayer. I hope Earth can always be as silent and beautiful as this, no matter what happens in the future. He let his hand fall, shaking his head with a helpless smile. The stars glittered on, indifferent to his hopes, but he clung to them anyway. Because in their silence, in their cold, unreachable brilliance, he found a reason to keep going. A reason to fight. The room they awoke in was dimly lit, shadows dancing across walls that looked like a strange marriage of technology and ancient magic. Faint lines of glowing runes ran along the stone floor, while strange, crystalline panels hummed softly on the ceiling. The atmosphere carried the heavy silence of a church at midnight, sacred, yet unsettling. A pleasant female voice broke through the groans of the youths lying scattered across the floor. "Welcome, destined ones." The words echoed, as if the walls themselves repeated them, sinking into the ears of the group still struggling to stand. Vita, rubbing her temples, was the first to retort, her tone sharp and defensive. "Where the fuck are we?" Her voice bounced harshly off the walls, breaking the tension but not easing it. One by one, they pushed themselves up with difficulty, bodies still sluggish, as if weighed down by more than just gravity. The events that led them here flickered in fragments in their minds, but nothing was clear. Chip's wide eyes darted around, and his lips trembled before he blurted out the thought that scared him most. "W8. Is this heaven or hell?" The female voice replied, calm and unfaltering. "No, chosen one." Chip swallowed nervously, trying again. "Reincarnation gate." "No, chosen one." The voice's tone remained patient, but its steady calm only made the air feel heavier. Chip looked like he was about to keep asking, his mind already brimming with wild theories, when Xander stepped forward and raised a hand slightly, stopping him. Xander put on his signature smile, confident, maybe even a little too relaxed for the situation, and addressed the unseen speaker. "Hello, the name's Xander. May you be so kind as to tell us why we're here?" Before the voice could reply, Nick suddenly stepped forward, anxiety written all over his face. He wasn't smiling, wasn't joking, just raw worry in his voice. "Look, enough of this horror movie shit for one day. Could you just send us back? My motorcycle is not in a safe place right now, and I know you're the one who dragged us here. Nobody welcomes strangers unless they're the ones doing the inviting." His logic was sharp, and his emotions sharper. The others glanced at him but couldn't disagree. Nick wasn't just worried about himself. He was worried about the one thing he had left that mattered. That motorcycle had been with him through every sleepless night, every city he drifted through, every failed attempt at settling down. It was his anchor in a life that felt like constant motion. Hearing him, the rest nodded inwardly, realizing he wasn't wrong. The voice didn't answer immediately. Instead, a robed figure slowly took shape in front of them, as if the shadows themselves condensed into form. The robe flowed with an ethereal shimmer, concealing all but the faint outline of a human figure. The figure raised a small rod tipped with a delicate star-shaped crystal. With a soft flick, the robe shimmered and vanished, dissolving into light. What stood before them was a woman with a middle-aged, elegant face. Her features were serene, carrying a beauty that wasn't youthful but timeless. But instead of comfort, this sight only heightened their unease. If anything, it confirmed she wasn't ordinary. Only one among them reacted differently, Chip. His eyes lit up like fireworks, and before anyone could stop him, he nearly jumped in place. "Magic." His voice cracked with excitement, and he spun toward Vita, grabbing her shoulders and shaking them with way too much energy. Guys, that's real magic." She just made her cloak vanish with a wand. Vita blinked, disoriented from his sudden shaking. Her patience snapped, and she slapped his hands away. "TCH, hands off." The irritation in her voice masked the truth. They were all shaken, even if only Chip dared to admit it out loud. If someone had told them yesterday that magic was real, they would have laughed, shrugged, maybe rolled their eyes. But after everything they had gone through today, the strange pull, the impossible lights, the collapse of reality into this place, they couldn't laugh anymore. Vita took a steadying breath, then glared at the woman. All right. Why exactly are we here?" "Because I'm pretty damn sure you planned for that old man to trick us into walking into this mess." The woman didn't flinch. Instead, she raised her wand and with another flick transformed, her posture shrank, her face wrinkled, her body curled slightly with age. An old man stood where the woman had been. Then another flick, and she returned to her original form. Yes, I did. But rather than saying I sent an old man, I was the old man. They froze, astonished. They had seen Rangers battle monsters on the news. They had seen kaiju-like creatures stomp through city streets on TV reports. But those had always been distant spectacles, things you believed, yet never touched. Now, seeing shape-shifting firsthand, the line between fantasy and reality shattered right in front of them. That's shape-shifting. Chip nearly exploded with glee. Can I learn that? The woman's lips curved into a soft, motherly smile. Yes, you can, and you definitely will. Awesome, Chip whispered to himself, his grin stretching ear to ear. The room fell quiet for a heartbeat, the group unsure how to even process what was happening. Then the woman spoke again, her tone carrying weight. Once again, I welcome the destined ones. My name is Udana, also known as the Snow Witch. As if her words themselves carried power, the air turned cold. A faint flurry of snowflakes drifted down from nowhere, landing on their shoulders, in their hair, melting softly against their warm skin. Their mouths parted slightly, mixing with disbelief. So, Miss Udana, Xander broke the silence, his smooth voice returning. Why exactly have you brought us here? Udana's gaze swept across them like a teacher regarding uncertain students. Her answer was simple, but it carried the force of a hammer blow. For you to save the world. Xander blinked. The others froze. Was practically written on their faces. Nick was the first to snap. Could you say that again? 'Cause I think I just heard something completely insane. Udana smiled faintly, as if she expected their disbelief. You are the saviors of the world. Silence fell. Not just a pause too long, drawn-out minutes where none of them spoke, their brains clawing at the edges of comprehension. Then Nick exhaled sharply and clapped his hands once. Yup. All right, team. Let's work together to find the exit. Without another word, the others nodded and began spreading out, determined to ignore the crazy woman in front of them. The room wasn't particularly large, but every surface was strange, walls of stone laced with glowing lines, no windows, no doors. They searched corners, pressed against walls, even stomped the floor, hoping for a trick panel. Minutes stretched into 20. Still nothing. Not a single exit. Just them, the strange glowing patterns, and the serene woman standing silently, waiting. Are you done searching? Udana's pleasant voice reached their ears once again, calm as ever, as if she'd known how this would end from the very beginning. The group turned toward her slowly, frustration and unease thick in their expressions. Madison, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the fear she'd been holding back. No, we're not. And what right do you have to lock us up in here? Aren't you scared we'll report you to the police? Her words cracked in the middle, but the defiance in her tone was real. Udana didn't flinch at Madison's trembling defiance. Her calm smile remained, her voice carrying the same soothing warmth it had since she first appeared. I understand your fear. I understand your anger. But you are not prisoners here. You're guests, though you do not yet realize why. Her words seemed to roll through the room like a gentle wave, brushing against the edges of their frustration. None of them spoke right away, though Nick crossed his arms and scowled, refusing to let go of his distrust so easily. Guests, he muttered under his breath. Pretty shitty hospitality, if you ask me. Vita gave a sharp exhale through her nose. Yeah, if this is a hotel, 1-star review from me. Xander, always ready to diffuse tension with humor, smirked at that, but his smirk faded when he saw the gravity in Udana's eyes. There was no hint of deception, only conviction. Udana lifted her wand slightly, and the runes etched into the floor pulsed faintly with blue light. The cold air thickened, and with it came a strange clarity, as if the weight pressing on their minds had lifted just a little. Sit, she said softly, motioning with her free hand. None of them moved at first. But the warmth in her tone was strange. It wasn't an order, but an invitation. One by one, almost reluctantly, they found themselves lowering to the ground, forming a loose circle around her. Nick sat with his arms crossed, glaring sideways at the floor. Vita sat with her legs stretched out defiantly, tapping her boot against the runes. Madison folded her hands tightly in her lap, eyes flicking between her friends and Udana. Xander leaned back with practiced ease, pretending to be comfortable. Chip was practically vibrating with excitement, barely able to contain himself. Udana let the silence breathe for a moment before she began. Long ago, before any of you were born, before the Age of Rangers as you know it today, there was another war. A war fought not with machines and weapons of steel, but with forces far older, far greater. It was the war of the Mystic Force. Her voice deepened slightly, carrying the weight of memory. The world was threatened by a darkness unlike any you could imagine. An evil so vast it sought not to conquer, but to consume, to smother the light itself. Against this evil rose the Mystic Force, an order of wizards and sorcerers, bound together by ancient magic, sworn to protect the world. The runes on the floor glowed brighter, and suddenly faint illusions began to shimmer in the air above them. They saw shadowy figures, cloaked in black smoke, clawing across a battlefield. Opposing them stood robed warriors, staffs blazing with light, spells crackling like thunder. The youths gasped softly. Even Nick, who tried to keep his skepticism, found himself leaning forward slightly. They fought valiantly, Udana continued, but the darkness was overwhelming. One by one, our forces fell. Our towers crumbled. Our defenses shattered. It was not a battle of equals, it was a desperate attempt to hold back an inevitable tide. The illusions showed wizards falling, swallowed by the smoke, their spells snuffed out as if they had never existed. The ground turned black beneath them, cracked and bleeding with shadows. Madison flinched, whispering without realizing it. "That's horrible." "It was," Udana said gently. Her gaze softened, but her words remained steady. "I was there. I fought alongside them. And I watched them die." The room fell still. Even Chip, whose mouth had been open in awe moments ago, closed it and swallowed hard. Udana's eyes seemed to drift far away, lost in the echoes of the past. "I was not the strongest among them. I was not even the bravest. But when the darkness struck its final blow, I was among the few who still stood. Myself and one other. A child. An infant, no more than a few months old." The illusions shifted. The battlefield dimmed, and in its place appeared a woman, Udana, though younger, her hair less silver, her face less worn by time. She clutched a swaddled infant to her chest, running across a collapsing bridge of light as shadows clawed at her heels. The group leaned forward, their eyes wide. "That child," Udana said softly, "was all that remained of my closest friend. A life born amidst death. I swore then and there I would protect him, no matter the cost." Vita frowned, her voice softer than before. "So, you're saying, everyone else?" Udana nodded. "Gone. Entire legions of wizards and sorcerers, wiped out. Our libraries burned. Our knowledge scattered. What we sealed away that day was not victory. It was survival." Her wand tapped gently against the stone, and the illusions shifted again. This time, they saw a great seal, an enormous circle carved into the ground, runes upon runes spiraling inward. Wizards poured what remained of their strength into it, their bodies crumbling into ash as the circle ignited with blinding light. "Together, with the last of our strength, we created the Great Seal," Udana said, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "We forced the darkness into slumber, binding it deep beneath the earth. It was not destroyed. It cannot be destroyed. Only held." The seal flashed, and then the illusion faded into silence. The room's dim lighting returned, the runes beneath them still glowing faintly but no longer projecting images. No one spoke right away. The weight of her story hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Finally, Chip broke the silence. "So, you're like a survivor of the last Wizard War? That's insane. That's like straight out of the comics. Wizards versus world-ending darkness. And you were there." His voice carried awe, but there was a flicker of fear in it too. Udana's lips curved into a sad smile. "Yes, I was there. And I have carried that memory every day since. A memory of failure and of hope." Xander tilted his head, brows raised. Hope. 'Cause from what you're saying, doesn't sound like there was much left to hope for. Hope, Udana repeated, her tone sharpening just slightly, because the seal held. Because for centuries, the darkness slumbered, unable to touch this world. Because in those centuries, humanity flourished, grew stronger, and found new protectors. She looked at them each in turn, her eyes lingering just long enough to make them uncomfortable. But the seal is weakening. Her words dropped like stones into water, rippling across the silence. The signs are clear. The runes crack. The shadows stir. The darkness seeks to rise again. And this time, if it awakens fully, it will not stop. It will not rest until this world is drowned in eternal night. Vida crossed her arms tightly, scowling to mask the chill running down her spine. And let me guess, you brought us here because you think a bunch of regular kids are somehow supposed to stop that? Her sarcasm was sharp, but the fear behind it was sharper. Udana didn't answer right away. She let the question hang in the air, her calm gaze meeting each of theirs. Yes, she finally said. Because it is your destiny. Nick scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. Destiny? That's bullshit. If this is such a big deal, why not call the Rangers? They fight monsters for breakfast. They've got giant robots and flashy suits and all that. Why drag us into this mess when you've already got professionals on the job? The others nodded quickly, the same question written on their faces. Udana's voice lowered, carrying a gravity that silenced them instantly. Because this is not a battle the Rangers were born to fight. This darkness, it was never meant to be theirs to face. It is yours. Yours alone. You are the ones the ancient prophecies spoke of. You are the ones chosen by fate itself. The room went quiet again. None of them knew what to say. The silence stretched, thick enough that every sound in the chamber seemed amplified, the faint hum of the runes, the rustle of shifting clothes, the uneven breathing of 5 unsettled youths. Finally, Nick broke it with a sharp laugh, though there was no humor in it. Fate? Prophecies? That's a load of crap. I don't buy into that mystical destiny garbage. People make their own choices. I sure as hell make mine. His voice carried a defiance that masked the unease beneath it. He wanted this to be a joke, wanted a door to open so he could walk away and forget he'd ever heard the word destiny. But the intensity in Udana's eyes told him no such escape was coming. Udana did not scold him. She only inclined her head slightly, as though acknowledging his resistance. I once said those very words, she admitted quietly. That destiny was nothing more than a chain meant to bind the free. I thought my choices alone could shape the world. Her gaze hardened, though her voice stayed calm. And then I watched an entire army of wizards slaughtered before my eyes. I watched friends sacrifice themselves to weave the Great Seal. I realized that some burdens are not chosen, they are inherited. Her words hit like stones. None of them spoke. Even Vida, who had her arms crossed stubbornly, shifted uncomfortably at the gravity behind them. Madison finally whispered, so, if you and the others sealed it once, why can't you just do it again? Why us? Udana's face softened. For the first time, the calm mask wavered, revealing the exhaustion behind her eyes. Because I cannot, she said, voice low. The seal demands sacrifice. Those who wove it gave their very lives to bind the darkness. I am the last of them. If I gave myself now, there would be no one left to guide you. No one left to teach. The darkness would break free again, unchallenged. The weight of her admission settled in their stomachs like lead. So, Xander cleared his throat, forcing a half-smile though his voice wavered. You're saying we're supposed to, what? Take up wands and start shooting fireballs at evil shadows. Chip lit up, eyes wide. Yes, exactly that. Can you imagine? Fireball spells, teleportation, shape-shifting. Chip, Vida snapped, shut up. He winced, but couldn't hide the grin tugging at his lips. Udana lifted her wand and traced a slow circle in the air. Tiny sparks of frost trailed from its tip, floating like snowflakes before dissolving. You will learn, she said, her voice unwavering. But first, you must understand why. The darkness you face is not a monster to be struck down in one battle. It is ancient. It is cunning. It will test you in ways you cannot imagine. It will find your fears and amplify them. It will seek to divide you, to break you, to turn you against one another. Her words lingered in the cold air. Madison shivered, and even Vita's sharpness faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. The seal is weakening, Udana continued. Already, shadows seep through the cracks. Strange creatures stir in forgotten places. Whispers spread through the air, carried by winds no one feels. If the seal breaks entirely, the darkness will rise again, and this world will not survive. The youths exchanged glances. Nick's scowl remained, but his jaw tightened as her words settled. Madison bit her lip. Xander tried to look composed, but shifted restlessly. Vita's fists clenched. Chip's grin faltered, replaced by awe. Udana's tone deepened, heavy with finality. This is why you were brought here. Not because I wished it, but because it is written. You are not ordinary youths. You are the ones the seal itself has whispered of, the ones whose souls resonate with the power of magic. You are the destined bearers of the mystic force. There was a pause, like the room itself had inhaled and was holding its breath. Nick blinked. Wait. Hold on. Back up. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Vita arched a brow, skeptical but intrigued. She's saying we're wizards? Or going to be? Xander ran a hand through his hair and gave a strained chuckle. Well, that explains why we're all trapped in a magical snow globe. Chip, unable to contain himself any longer, practically bounced where he sat. You mean we're going to be rangers, right? Magic rangers. Oh man, this is literally the best day of my life. Madison frowned, staring at the runes beneath her feet. But why us? Out of everyone in the world, why us? Udana regarded them quietly for a long moment before answering. Because your spirits carry the marks of the elements. Fire, water, air, earth, and lightning. These elements are more than symbols, they are the building blocks of magic itself. Together, you are the only ones who can awaken the ancient powers. Together, you are the ones who can wield the mystic arts to stand against the darkness. Her gaze swept over each of them in turn, and though none wanted to admit it, they felt something stir deep within them, a faint resonance, a warmth in their core that responded to her words. Nick felt heat pulse in his chest, a stubborn flame that mirrored his defiance. Madison felt a cool wave settle through her, steady and calm despite her fear. Vita sensed the rush of wind in her veins, restless and sharp. Xander felt the weight of stone beneath him, grounding his nervous humor. Chip felt sparks of light dance at the edge of his vision, filling him with childlike wonder. Udana's voice softened, almost like a mother speaking to children. You may not believe it now. You may deny it, resist it, even hate it. But the power within you is real. And soon, very soon, it will awaken. The chamber grew silent again, but it was a different silence than before. Not one of disbelief or denial, but of weight. Of realization. Nick clenched his fists, frustration warring with the fire in his chest. So what, you're just gonna train us to fight your war? Throw us at this darkness like sacrifices? Udana shook her head firmly. Not sacrifices. Protectors. Chosen not because you are expendable, but because you are capable. You have within you the strength this world needs. You will not fight alone. You will fight as one. That is what it means to be rangers. The word lingered in the air, rangers. It carried with it every image they'd seen on television, every story of heroes in armor facing impossible odds. And now, impossibly, it was being placed on their shoulders. Chip whispered it reverently. Rangers. Vita's brow furrowed, her tone sharp to hide her unease. This is insane. We're just kids. We don't know how to. Udana interrupted gently, neither did those before you. Every ranger begins as someone ordinary. What makes them extraordinary is not their power, but their choice to rise when the world needs them. The words hung heavy, striking something deep in each of them. For the first time since they'd arrived, Nick said nothing. His glare remained, but there was hesitation now, doubt not in her words, but in himself. Madison hugged her knees, her eyes distant. Vita stared stubbornly at the ground. Xander exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Chip's grin crept back, though softer this time, tempered by awe. Udana stood, her robes flowing as if stirred by an unseen wind. Snowflakes drifted from the air, landing gently on the shoulders of the destined five. "Your journey begins now," she said, her voice carrying finality. "Whether you accept it or not, the darkness stirs. And when it awakens, only you will have the power to stand against it." Her eyes glimmered like ice, piercing yet gentle. "Will you accept this as the Mystic Force Rangers?" The atmosphere was scorching hot, almost suffocating, as if the flames of hell itself had chosen this place as their permanent home. The entire lair reverberated with a cacophony of eerie laughter and guttural grunts, a mix of madness and hunger that never seemed to end. On both sides of the lair stood deformed and abyssal monsters of various kinds, their twisted bodies and grotesque features reflecting the corruption of darkness itself. Each beast stood as though waiting for orders, heads bowed yet eyes gleaming with feral anticipation. None dared move without command. At the very center of this cursed domain was a pit. A pit so deep and so black that it earned a single name, the Abyss. It was not just a hole in the ground, it was a gateway, a maw that seemed to swallow light and sanity alike. None of the underworld's generals dared look directly into it. Even the boldest of them kept their gaze low, their hearts trembling with the knowledge of what resided beneath. Except one. A knight clad in shining, imposing purple armor stood before the Abyss, unflinching. His presence carried the weight of dignity, an aura that clashed violently with the chaos surrounding him. A massive sword rested in his right hand, its edge faintly glowing with an otherworldly aura, while his left arm bore a wolf-shaped shield, cold and fierce. The knight's name was Korag. He was kneeling before the pit, head lowered, as though communing with the abyss itself, listening, waiting, receiving silent instructions from the unseen master within. His stillness was unnerving, like a statue forged from arrogance and resolve. But the peace did not last. An arrogant voice broke through the whispers of the pit, tearing Korag out of his focused stillness. "Korag, what instructions were we given? Speak quickly to your king." The words dripped with impatience and vanity. Korag's fingers tightened on the hilt of his blade. His face, hidden behind his wolf-like helmet, betrayed no emotion, but the air around him grew heavier, charged with irritation. He chose not to answer. Silence was his defiance. The one who had spoken, a short, stocky figure sitting atop a crude throne made from bones and molten stone, fumed instantly at the insult. His entire body shook with anger as smoke erupted from his head like a furnace ready to explode. He was Drakkon, commander of the pit. His bony fingers gripped the hilt of his twisted sword, a blade forged from countless damned souls, and he pointed it directly at Korag. "You dare ignore me, knight?" Drakkon snarled, his voice echoing across the lair like a beast's roar. "You forget yourself. I am the commander of this pit. You will obey me." The monsters lining the lair stiffened. None dared breathe too loudly, fearful of what would follow. Slowly, Korag rose to his feet. The scraping of his armored boots against the scorched ground sent chills through even the fiercest demon in the chamber. His blade lifted, steady and deliberate, until it pointed directly at Drakkon. His voice came next low, chilling, like a wolf growling in the dead of night. "I listen to no one but the master. You have no authority over me." The words cut sharper than any sword. Drakon's rage faltered, his tongue caught in his throat. For a moment, the mighty commander of the pit found himself silenced by a single knight's defiance. The two locked eyes, their glares like clashing blades. Sparks of hostility filled the lair, threatening to ignite into a full battle at any second. Time seemed to freeze as monsters on both sides shuffled nervously, ready to scatter if blood was drawn. Finally, Drakkon broke the silence. His nostrils flared, smoke pouring out in streams as he snorted like a bull denied its charge. He lowered his sword reluctantly, though his eyes never left Korag. Korag, unfazed, spoke again, his voice calm but commanding. "The master has given his order. The light must be captured. Effective immediately." The chamber stirred. Whispers spread among the monsters, their voices laced with curiosity and fear. Korag continued, his tone unchanging. "And the Master has said this: if you succeed, Mordecai, you will be unsealed from the pit." For the first time that day, Mordecai's expression changed. His anger melted away, replaced by wide-eyed hunger. His eyes gleamed with greedy delight, his grotesque mouth curling into a smile. "Unsealed," he muttered, almost reverently. Then his voice rose, booming with triumph. "If that's the case, then capturing this so-called light will be nothing but child's play." He threw his head back and laughed wildly, his guttural roar bouncing off the cavern walls. It was the laughter of a man who thought himself invincible. "Ha ha! At last, I will be free." Mordecai's booming laughter continued, his pride swelling as though victory had already been secured. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and barked orders to his minions. "Go! Capture the light. Bring it to me." Dozens of abyssal soldiers and monstrous henchmen bowed deeply before storming out of the lair, their footsteps pounding like drums of war. Mordecai watched them leave with glee, certain of his triumph. Korag, however, remained unmoved. Behind his helmet, his eyes narrowed, disdain creeping into his voice as he muttered under his breath. "Fool! Pride shall be your downfall." His gaze lingered on the abyss, silent once more, while Mordecai reveled in his own arrogance. Outer space, above Earth's orbit. Far above the blue-green jewel known as Earth, the silence of space was broken by the slow, steady advance of warships. They were sleek yet terrifying vessels, constructed from a blend of ancient craftsmanship and advanced technology. The hulls gleamed with silver and emerald designs, etched with runes that pulsed faintly like beating hearts. Heavy artillery lined their sides, cannons capable of reducing a city to dust, proof that these ships were not meant for peace. They were ships of the elves. The armada cut through the void with terrifying grace, their movements too precise to be anything but militaristic. Their destination was clear Earth. Inside the lead ship, a long, dim corridor hummed with energy. Elven warriors in polished armor moved with practiced discipline, their hands on their weapons, their expressions grim but resolute. These were not the whimsical elves of fairy tales. They were hardened by centuries of war and ambition. At the heart of the ship stood its commander, a tall, imposing elf with silver hair cascading down his shoulders and cold eyes that had seen too many battlefields. He stood by the control dais, overlooking the stars with an expression carved from stone. This was the same elf who once orchestrated the operation to steal the Reality Stone from Asgard. His voice was calm yet heavy with authority as he spoke to his officers. "Our course is set. Earth lies ahead. The promise has been given: capture the light, and in return, the Reality Stone shall be ours." Whispers of anticipation rippled through the crew. For generations, their people had searched for the stone, the artifact of infinite potential, yet it had eluded them time and again. Now, with the words of a great being backing their mission, the elves had renewed hope. One officer, younger and more brash, stepped forward. "Commander, do you truly trust this being? To promise us something even Asgard could not claim so easily." The commander's eyes flickered, but his voice remained steady. "I do not trust. I only calculate what benefits us. And right now, the calculation is simple. If there is even a chance this promise is true, then we must take it. The Reality Stone is worth any gamble." The younger elf bowed his head, though doubt lingered in his eyes. The others, however, looked determined. Another officer spoke, quieter but with a hint of unease. "And this light we are to capture, do we know what form it takes?" The commander's lips curled into the faintest of smirks. "We will know soon enough." Silence followed, heavy and expectant, as the warship pressed closer to Earth. The silence of the void was broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines, a rhythm that seemed to merge with the pulse of the crew's anticipation. Every elf on board knew what was at stake. Their mission wasn't merely conquest, it was destiny. The command deck stretched wide, built with a mixture of elegant design and raw practicality. Tall archways carved with glowing runes lined the walls, giving the interior a regal yet intimidating presence. Transparent screens hovered above stone-like pedestals, combining the ancient with the futuristic. Everything about the ship screamed of a people who refused to abandon their heritage, even as they embraced the machinery of war. At the center, the commander stood unmoving, his armored figure like a statue watching over the cosmos. His silver hair caught the glow of the runes as he folded his arms behind his back. He had led countless battles, from the borders of their realm to distant galaxies. Yet this mission felt different. It carried the weight of something greater. "Status report," the commander finally said, his voice sharp and commanding. "Engines stable, shields at full power. We'll breach Earth's orbital perimeter in 5 cycles," one officer replied crisply, his fingers gliding across a control rune. Another, a woman with braided white hair, spoke from the strategy dais. "Weapons fully charged. Ballistae aligned. Should we engage planetary defenses if challenged?" The commander's gaze shifted to her, his eyes like cold steel. "No. Earth is not our enemy, yet. We are not here to wage war on humans. Our target is the light." The word light seemed to echo across the room, heavy and almost sacred. Every soldier present straightened, as though reminded of the seriousness of their mission. From the lower deck, a younger warrior raised his voice. His tone held curiosity, but also a trace of unease. "Commander, forgive my question, but this light, what exactly is it? We've heard rumors, whispers, even contradictions. Some say it is a person, others claim it is a weapon or a spirit. What truth is there?" The commander remained still for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned slowly, his silver hair swaying with the movement. His eyes pierced the young elf like an arrow. "The truth," he began, voice deliberate, "is irrelevant. The great being has spoken. Capture the light, deliver it, and the reality stone will be ours. That is all that matters." The young warrior bowed, chastened, though his heart still stirred with doubt. The crew returned to their duties, yet the tension lingered. Every elf had heard of the reality stone, the fabled infinity gem of creation. They had sought it for centuries, hunted its whispers through star maps and ruins, but always it slipped through their grasp. To some, it was a dream. To others, an obsession. Now, with a great being promising its reward in exchange for the light, the elves felt that obsession burning anew. Later, within the warship's officer quarters, the tension bled into hushed conversations. "They say the being who promised us the stone is older than even Asgard," one elf murmured, his voice low, cautious. "What kind of power can speak with such certainty?" Another scoffed lightly, though his eyes betrayed unease. "What does it matter? If it delivers, then let it. We've wasted centuries searching. Perhaps fate has finally chosen us." A third, polishing his blade, muttered darkly, "Or perhaps we've been lured into someone else's game." The first officer leaned closer, his whisper sharp. "Wouldn't be the first time. Remember the Kree Alliance? The Skrull's deception? Our people have been pawns before." The second bristled, glaring. "Mind your tongue. Such words are close to treason." The tension thickened, only for the commander himself to enter. Instantly, silence fell. The elves stood, fists over their chests in salute. "Enough whispers," the commander said coldly. "Doubt is poison. Faith in command is survival. You will remember this." His eyes swept the room, and not a soul dared meet his gaze for long. Still, he added something softer, something that caught them all off guard. "Do not mistake my words. I, too, have doubts. But I have learned this in war, whether pawn or king, only the victor decides which was which. When we hold the reality stone, no one will call us pawns." The silence that followed was heavier, but also steadier. The officers bowed, returning to their posts with grim determination. The commander lingered for a moment, turning his eyes to the viewport where Earth was now visible in the distance, a vibrant jewel glowing against the void. He clenched his fist. Outer space. Warship bridge, hours later. The armada now glided in silence, their approach masked by advanced cloaking runes. The planet loomed closer, its swirling oceans and continents like fragile treasures waiting to be claimed. "Commander," one of the officers said, his voice tense. "Scouts report no resistance yet. Earth's defenses remain unaware of our presence." "Good," the commander replied, his tone curt. Do not provoke unless provoked. This mission requires precision, not noise. Yes, Commander. The younger officer from before, unable to silence his nerves, spoke again. Permission to ask, sir? The commander gave him a single glance. Speak. If this light truly holds the power the Master claims, why Earth? Of all places in the galaxy, why would it be hidden there? Why not Asgard? Or Xander? Or the Nova Empire? The commander was silent for a long time, his gaze fixed on the planet below. When he finally spoke, his voice was grim, almost reluctant. You ask too many questions, officer, he said. There are some things that should not be known. The officer swallowed, his question answered, though unease deepened. The bridge fell silent once more, every soldier lost in thought. Their mission was clear, but the weight of it pressed heavier with each passing moment. Meanwhile, deep within the ship's War Council chamber, the commander reviewed projections on a hovering screen. Glimpses of Earth's cities appeared one by one: New York, London, Tokyo, Wakanda. His mind calculated possibilities, routes of infiltration, extraction points. His hand hovered above a glowing sigil marked Target Acquisition. But before pressing it, he whispered under his breath. Light. I hope you are as interesting as I expect. A small, cold smile flickered across his face. Zane POV. It was almost noon, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about Rangers, kaiju, alien threats, or the cosmic nightmares lurking behind every corner of existence. I was just living. The sunlight streamed through the windows of my home, warm and golden, spilling across the polished floor like liquid peace. Outside, I could hear the faint hum of the city, cars rolling by, birds calling out, the occasional laugh of kids playing down the block. Simple sounds. Human sounds. I sat back on the couch, a mug of coffee in hand, the aroma filling the room as I scrolled through channels on the TV. No alerts, no news of sudden disasters, no monster attacks. Just a quiet morning. For breakfast, I'd actually taken the time to cook eggs, toast, even some pancakes stacked high like I was competing with IHOP. The kind of meal normal people made without a second thought, but to me, it felt like a luxury. I stretched, leaning back with a satisfied groan. Man, this is good. Later, I took a slow walk around the block. Nothing crazy. Just breathing in fresh air, nodding at passers-by, even stopping by a local bakery to grab a bag of fresh bread. The kind of errand that didn't involve saving the universe, but it still felt important somehow. I passed by a park, watching kids chase each other across the grass, their laughter rising into the clear blue sky. Couples walked hand in hand. Old men played chess. Dogs barked happily, tails wagging. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing it all in. This, I muttered to myself, is what it means to live. No weapons. No cosmic burdens. Just peace. By evening, I had settled back at home. Dinner was already in the oven, music played softly in the background, and I was reading a book I'd put off for weeks. It was the perfect day, the kind that reminded me what I was fighting for in the first place. Then, as I closed the book and leaned back with a small smile, the words slipped out of my mouth almost without thinking. Today feels too good to be true. And just like that, Zane stared at the mission in bewilderment, the blue-tinted interface of the grid shimmering before his eyes. A second ago, he had been enjoying the quiet peace of the day, daring to mutter out loud that today felt too good to be true. And sure enough, as if fate had taken offense at his confidence, the notification appeared. He let out a small, humorless laugh. So those novels weren't lying after all. I really did jinx myself. For a moment he stood there, letting the weight of the words settle. His eyes narrowed on the panel. Mystic Rangers. The timeline was shifting into dangerous territory, and there were already complications. His face grew solemn. I hope it's not too difficult to solve, he muttered, half to himself, half to the grid. But with my strength almost at C tier, I should be able to handle early-phase villains. Still, his thoughts weighed heavily. Ranger villains powered by magic weren't like the usual monsters of the week. Magic had loopholes, twisted rules, and cruel creativity behind it, almost like a low-tier toon force. He remembered the lore. A genie used by evil magic nearly plunged the entire world into darkness once. It was like a cursed parody of reality itself. And now, in a universe fused with Marvel's chaos, villains weren't bound to Power Ranger logic anymore. What kind of abominations would they face this time? He shook his head, unwilling to indulge in paranoia. Instead, he moved methodically. With practiced efficiency, he typed up an email to his high school, drafting an excuse about being unavailable for the week. Being a top-ranked student had its perks. No one would question him. Once finished, he stood tall, exhaling slowly. No room for arrogance. Strike at full strength. Just like a steady cultivator. The words grounded him. He opened the grid interface again, connecting to his base. Teleport. Whoosh. In a flash of radiant crimson, his figure dissolved, vanishing from the room entirely. Root Core. You have been here for 2 days. What are your decisions? The question drifted softly across the silent chamber, carried on a serene yet commanding voice. The root core glowed faintly, its archaic design pulsing with life. Candles hovered in midair like watching eyes, their flames bending whenever Udana spoke. Her words, however, were met only with silence. The 5 figures slouched in different corners of the room, their expressions hollow, their shoulders weighed down by something far heavier than fatigue. Their eyes lacked the luster they had carried when they first stepped into this place. Udana's gaze softened. She could see the toll it had taken on them. She lowered her head slightly, voice laced with regret. If I had known showing you the future would burden your heart so greatly, I would not have done it. For that, I deeply apologize. The moment she said it, their bodies trembled. The trauma was fresh, carved deep into their subconscious. Udana's own heart clenched, but she forced herself to act. She could not let them linger in despair. Her staff shimmered faintly as she whispered an incantation. Lux Sana. A gentle green light radiated from her palms, washing over the 5 with a warm, healing glow. It spread like a tide, mending the exhaustion in their muscles, soothing the ache in their hearts. Slowly, their dull appearances regained some luster, as if they had just awoken from a nightmare. One by one, their breathing steadied. Their postures straightened. Life crept back into their eyes. Then Nick, unable to restrain himself, stepped forward. His voice cracked slightly with lingering doubt. Are you sure we can stop what's coming? You saw it yourself. We're just ordinary people. We haven't received any training, no powers, nothing. How are we supposed to fight that? The others nodded quickly. His words were the same fears that had been clawing at their minds since they saw it. Udana met their gaze with a calm, unwavering smile. You are no ordinary people. Each of you is chosen by magic itself, bound by destiny. If there are any who can rise against this threat, it is you. Magic is far more powerful than you assume. It will guide you, strengthen you, and bend to your will. No one else can wield it but you. Zane, cough, cough, I'm here, guys. Her certainty cut through the fog of fear like a ray of sunlight. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Xander's voice rang out, steady and decisive. Fine. Let's do this then. They knew what they saw. They would never allow something like that to emerge in this world. Even other Ranger teams on the planet could not stop him. Zane, are you sure? Nick looked at the others, lifting his hand halfway. Are you all with me? Yes, came 4 voices in unison. They didn't know why they had answered so quickly, but somewhere deep in their hearts, their subconscious had already accepted Nick as their leader. His determination was like an anchor holding them steady amidst the storm. He was always the first to question Udana and this craziness, so he had indirectly solved most of their doubts. Udana's lips curved into a gentle smile. Good. She raised her wand, its star-shaped tip glowing brilliantly. Now, these wands shall be transformed into your Ranger morphers. Each incantation, each code you unlock, will grant you a new form of power. They are soul-bound and can be stored within your very essence. The 5 wands floated into the air, slowly drifting toward their rightful owners. Each one pulsed faintly, resonating with its destined wielder. Udana began her declarations, her voice resounding in the chamber. Nick, your origin is light, fierce, and destructive. You shall be the Red Mystic Ranger. Madison, your origin flows serene as water, yet as terrifying as the depths of the ocean. You shall be the blue Mystic Ranger. Xander, your origin is filled with vitality, brimming with the essence of nature and life. You shall be the green Mystic Ranger. Chip, your origin is as domineering as the heavens, striking forth with endless lightning. You shall be the yellow Mystic Ranger. Vita, your origin is as oppressive as the storm, as fierce as the ever-turning skies. You shall be the pink Mystic Ranger. And together, you shall rise as a new generation of heroes, wielders of good magic against evil magic. You shall be. Her words hung in the air. The chamber seemed to lean in, waiting, listening. The Mystic Force Rangers. As if affirming her proclamation, the book of magic resting on the altar pulsed with a blinding radiance. Its ancient pages flipped wildly on their own, new text burning itself into existence across the parchment. Runes older than humanity revealed themselves, glowing brilliantly before sinking into the pages as though the book itself was alive. The five stood mesmerized, each of their expressions determined, because no one except them could stop what was coming. Well, that's what they thought. A red teleportation gate appeared in the heart of the core ranger base, and out of it stepped Zane. The gate shimmered faintly before closing behind him, leaving a sharp hum in the air. Almost immediately, Alpha and Kara appeared beside him, their presence as punctual as always. Zane's eyes swept across the office. The room was large, its architecture sleek yet imposing, polished with an elegance that spoke of advanced design and power. But despite its beauty, it was empty, silent, almost lifeless. He sighed, his expression hardening slightly. I should really get helpers as soon as possible, he muttered under his breath. A place as beautiful as this shouldn't be this desolate. His words echoed faintly across the vast chamber. It felt wrong to him. The base wasn't serving its true purpose yet. This was supposed to be the forefront of defense against threats that could shake worlds, a central hub of operations that demanded activity, presence, and skill. Instead, it was empty. Cold. His gaze lingered for a moment longer before he shook his head, as if shaking off the weight of the thought. I'll start working on this after the mission, he resolved inwardly. He already had a few candidates in mind, individuals strong enough, capable enough to fill these halls with the energy it deserved. He exhaled sharply, his attention snapping back to the task at hand. Alpha, Kara, locate the Mystic Force base and their location in real time. I need a holographic visual data feed. Affirmative, sir, they both answered in unison. The system hummed to life with a sharp beep. The locator engaged, and the advanced systems of the Universal Core activated instantly, its near-omnipotent scanner sweeping across the dimensional fabric. Information poured through the networks at incomprehensible speed, bypassing barriers that ordinary technology could never breach. Within moments, Alpha reported. It is done, sir. Zane's brow lifted slightly. That fast, he thought, impressed at the efficiency. Outwardly, he only gave a slight nod, concealing his surprise. His eyes fixed on the holographic visual that appeared before him. And then he saw something that made his lips curl into a faint smile. Oh, quite interesting, he whispered. I hope he gives me a good fight later. His tone held both curiosity and anticipation, a predator catching the scent of worthy prey. Alpha, lock onto the coordinates. I'll be teleporting in 5 minutes, he commanded firmly. Affirmative, sir. Kara, let's do this, Alpha replied. Kara nodded, her mechanical eyes glowing as she fine-tuned the locking sequence. Zane rose to his feet, the weight of his decision settling in his posture. His hand moved with practiced ease as he equipped the Omni-Morpher, the sleek device locking securely around his arm. With a commanding voice, he declared, Omni-Morpher, lock on. Locking on. Initiating Phase 1. A digital voice resonated from the device, followed by a surge of radiant energy that flared around him in crimson arcs. His aura pulsed with controlled intensity as the base itself seemed to respond to his power. Mystic Realm. Path to Mystic City. The Mystic Rangers were beginning to adapt to their new reality. The uncertainty of their sudden calling was still fresh, but Udana knew well how to guide them. She had suggested a trip into the main city of the Mystic Realm, and now the group walked steadily along the glowing forest path that led toward it. As they moved, Udana spoke with the calm confidence of a mentor, pointing out the various beings that passed them by. The young rangers could hardly contain their amazement. They saw unicorns grazing gracefully near sparkling streams, their horns glimmering like crystalline blades. A flock of Pegasi soared overhead, their wings casting fleeting shadows as sunlight danced upon them. Further down, wyverns circled in the distance, their scales reflecting emerald and sapphire hues. Elves walked among them on the path, their steps light and elegant, their gazes sharp yet welcoming. For the rangers, especially Chip, the sight was overwhelming. His wide grin seemed glued to his face. Unicorns? Pegasi? Wyverns? This is insane. I mean, it's like walking into every fantasy book I've ever read. His voice was practically vibrating with excitement. The others chuckled at his enthusiasm, though they shared it deeply inside. The tension they had carried, the doubts about their responsibilities, the weight of being chosen, seemed to lighten with every step. Udana had planned this well. By letting them witness the beauty of what they were meant to protect, she anchored their hearts to this place. After what felt like half an hour of walking, the trees parted and the city came into view. The sight left them speechless. The city rose in majestic tiers, its architecture a breathtaking blend of nature and magic. Towers carved from luminous stone glowed faintly under the sun, while enchanted runes lined the walls, humming with power. Canals of sparkling water wove through streets that bustled with life, where creatures of countless species moved freely. The air carried a sense of harmony, an unspoken unity binding everyone together. Nick's eyes widened. No way, this is real? It's magnificent, Madison murmured, her soft voice barely audible, but full of awe. Even Vita, usually composed, let out a whistle. Well, this beats every city back on Earth. Udana smiled, pleased at their wonder. This is Mystic City, a place where many realms converge. Here, countless beings coexist under the guardianship of magic. Chip blinked rapidly, his mind struggling to keep up. Wait, so you mean this realm is a whole separate dimension from Earth? And the mystic force protects all of it? Udana's eyes gleamed kindly. Yes, Chip. But not only this realm. The mystic force stands watch over other dimensions as well. Their jaws nearly dropped in unison. The sheer scope of what she said hit them like a wave. Protecting one realm was already beyond belief, but multiple? And will help protect this realm too? Xander asked, his voice cautious but curious. Of course, Udana replied with certainty. Vita narrowed her eyes slightly, her curiosity biting at her. Then can we know how many realms exist? And what kind of realms they are? Udana's lips curved into a mysterious smile. Telling you now would only distract you. In time, all shall be revealed. The Rangers groaned inwardly, her cryptic answers already something they were getting used to, though that didn't make it any less frustrating. Still, her tone carried weight, and they could sense she spoke truth. As they entered deeper into the city, their eyes caught the massive golden plaque at its gates, etched with runes that pulsed with enchantment. The words glowed faintly. Mystic City. The sight alone made their hearts swell. Madison's lips parted softly, her words escaping in awe. So beautiful. The others nodded silently, letting the atmosphere wash over them. For the first time since their journey began, they felt a sense of belonging. But the moment was shattered. A violent boom shook the streets, an explosion ripping through the harmony. Smoke billowed from a far corner of the city as civilians screamed and scattered. The ground trembled faintly under the aftershock. The Rangers froze, their eyes wide. Udana's gaze hardened instantly. Dark magic, she whispered, her tone cold, sharp enough to cut stone. The Rangers felt the chill run down their spines at her words. The tension gripped them immediately. Nick turned to her, his fists clenching. So, this is it, huh? His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the storm inside, fear, yes, but also resolve. Udana gave a single, grim nod. Nick exhaled sharply, his determination locking into place. Before this, he had doubted himself, wondered if he was truly capable of protecting something so vast. But now, after seeing the city, the creatures, and the beauty of the realm, something shifted inside him. This place felt like home already, even if it was strange. And he couldn't stand the thought of it being destroyed. He turned to his teammates, his expression resolute. "Let's do this, guys." One by one, their faces hardened. Xander's grin faded into focus. Chip's nervous excitement solidified into courage. Madison's hesitation turned into quiet strength. Vita's sharp eyes glowed with resolve. Udana watched them, her heart swelling with pride. This was what she had hoped for. They were ready. She raised her staff and murmured an incantation. A circle of glowing symbols flared beneath them, enveloping the group in light. In an instant, their bodies dissolved into streams of magic, vanishing from the street. They were gone, teleported directly to where the darkness awaited. Buildings shattered as if made of glass, their fragments flung across the streets like deadly shards. The shockwave rippled through the city, tearing banners from their poles, crumbling statues, and turning peaceful pathways into smoking ruins. Dark magic saturated the air, thick, corrosive, suffocating. It wasn't just destruction, it was despair made manifest, twisting the once serene atmosphere into an abyss of chaos. The city that once radiated golden light was now consumed by an unnatural twilight. From the heart of the explosion emerged the attackers, eldritch monsters, grotesque and malformed, numbering over 200. Their shapes defied natural form, skin like rotted tar, eyes glowing sickly green, and limbs that bent at impossible angles. The ground itself recoiled beneath their steps, tainted by their very existence. "Run! Monsters!" a terrified voice screamed, breaking the silence of disbelief. Panic erupted instantly. Residents ran wildly, clutching their children, pulling their loved ones close. The sense of safety that had defined Mystic City for centuries shattered in an instant. They had lived in peace for generations. None had ever imagined this kind of horror could reach their shining realm. "Someone call for the city guards," an old man shouted desperately, his voice trembling with fear. "Sumio." Before the word could leave his mouth, a shadow loomed over him. A massive clawed hand seized his head. The pressure was instant, merciless. Crunch. Pop. His skull burst like an overripe fruit, blood and brain matter splattering across the cobblestone streets. The remains dripped from the creature's claws as it licked the crimson off lazily. Screams erupted. Mothers clutched their children tighter, while others stood frozen in horror, unable to comprehend the brutality before their eyes. The one who had killed him stood tall amidst the chaos, a 7-foot wolf-like monster draped in dark mist. His fur was pitch black, his eyes glowing with blood-red malice. The air around him reeked of death. He was known as Ron, commander of this small battalion of abyssal soldiers. Noisy ants, Ron growled in disdain, his voice a deep, guttural snarl that rumbled through the ruins. His eyes swept over the terrified faces of the survivors as if their fear amused him. "The light has not arrived yet. It seems this amount of destruction is still not enough." He raised his clawed hand high. "Foot soldiers," he commanded coldly, "kill every living thing in sight." The moment his words fell, the army of abyssal creatures howled as one, an unholy symphony of madness and hunger. They charged. The streets were instantly drowned in chaos. Windows shattered from the pressure of their stampede. Residents tripped and fell, their screams silenced as claws pierced flesh. One woman, carrying her child, stumbled. Before she could rise, a creature's spear impaled her through the chest. Her body convulsed before falling still, her child crying over her corpse. Blood ran freely through the cobblestones, turning the roads crimson. The smell of iron and death thickened the air. The city's beauty, its harmony, was being torn apart piece by piece. The surviving civilians began to lose hope. Some prayed, others froze, unable to move as the monsters approached. But then, zing! A flash of light streaked across the sky. The roar of the monsters suddenly ceased. The abyssal soldiers that had been charging forward froze mid-step before collapsing one by one. Their bodies fell in heaps, smoke rising from the clean cuts that severed them. For a moment, silence reigned. Only the sound of debris falling echoed faintly. The residents opened their eyes hesitantly, expecting to see more horrors. Instead, they saw something different. Glowing faintly amidst the smoke was a shining emblem, an insignia glowing bright gold. The Mystic Force insignia. A woman screamed in sudden relief. "We're saved." The crowd erupted in cheers and tears. Hope surged like a flood as they recognized the symbol. The protectors of their realm had arrived. Udana, clad in her flowing white robes, stood at the forefront with the new Mystic Rangers beside her. The aura around her was calm yet sharp, like the stillness before a blizzard. "Rangers," she ordered firmly, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. "Help the residents to safety first, then engage the foot soldiers. Remember, use magic. You only need to believe." Her voice carried both warmth and command. The Rangers nodded without question and split up immediately. Nick, Vita, Xander, Chip, and Madison ran toward the civilians, summoning their wands as they chanted spells. Barriers of light appeared, shielding fleeing groups from the monster's pursuit. But Ron was not going to let them act freely. His eyes glowed brighter, his claws twitching in anticipation. "Foot soldiers, stop them," he roared. The monsters howled and moved to obey, but before they could reach the Rangers, a shard of glowing ice shot through the air, SHRRK, slamming into the ground in front of Ron. The explosion of frost forced him to step back. Udana's calm voice followed. "Not so fast, Wolf of the Abyss." Ron turned his glare toward her. His crimson eyes flared with hatred. "And who do you think you are, filthy human?" he snarled. Udana chuckled softly, her tone steady. "What a vulgar mouth. But I expected nothing less from a beast born of the abyss. Still, your arrogance ends here. The name Snow Witch shall be the last you remember before death." Ron's grin widened, fangs glinting. "Ha ha ha. You? A frail little human? I'll rip you apart limb from limb." His muscles bulged under his black fur as he dropped to all fours. The ground cracked under his claws, his body exuding a feral killing intent. Udana didn't flinch. Her calm eyes reflected the fury in his. "Very well," she said softly. "It seems the mystic force must make the abyss remember fear once more." She raised her wand high. "Magical source, mystic force." A neutral, ethereal voice echoed around her. "Going Misto Ranger." Time froze. The world dimmed, and the ground beneath her became a radiant circle of runes. A white sigil appeared above her, spinning with divine energy before descending in a spiral of light. Her body glowed as the transformation sequence began. Her white ranger armor formed over her body, the visor sealing with a hiss as she extended her arm upward. Her staff appeared in her grasp, swirling with magical energy. When the light faded, she stood in her full ranger form, the white mystic ranger, embodiment of purity and winter's wrath. The moment time resumed, the temperature around them plummeted. Frost spread across the ground, turning the air into a blizzard. Ron's eyes narrowed as he felt it. The pressure emanating from her was suffocating. "This power," he muttered, his voice shaking slightly despite his attempt to sound composed. Udana's tone was cold and final. "Abyssal minion, surrender now and I promise you a swift death." Ron bared his teeth. "Let our fists decide, human. I don't surrender to anyone." He lunged forward. The ground cratered under his leap as he shot toward her, claws slicing through the air with deadly precision. Udana raised her wand calmly, murmuring a spell. An ice shield materialized instantly, translucent and glimmering. Cling! The impact was brutal. Ron's claws struck the barrier and rebounded with explosive force. The backlash sent him hurtling backward into a nearby building, the structure collapsing over him in a thunderous crash. Udana stood unmoved, frost dancing around her feet. Ron growled as he rose from the rubble, blood trickling from his mouth. His pride burned. This human. She's strong. Didn't the king say humans were weak? He clenched his fists. Guess I'll have to use that. He straightened, his aura turning feral. Be proud, human, he roared. You shall witness this alpha's ultimate technique. Udana said nothing, but beneath her visor, her brow furrowed slightly. Ron's body began to glow with crimson energy. Bloodlust. Rage. Moon Domain. Alpha's authority. The ground trembled under the weight of his unleashed power. His frame expanded, growing to nearly 9 feet tall. His muscles swelled, his fur turned darker, and his claws elongated into blades that shimmered with red light. The moon above flickered blood-red, reflecting his dominance. Udana inhaled sharply, then steadied herself. "So be it," she whispered. Their auras clashed violently as she rushed forward. Ron met her head-on. Their first collision cracked the earth. The shockwave shattered windows across the district. They exchanged blow after blow, 30 strikes in seconds, each one powerful enough to crumble stone. Udana's movements were graceful yet lethal, her wand parrying and striking with precision. Ron fought like a beast, each swipe filled with raw strength and savagery. But the destruction around them grew too severe. Udana frowned, realizing the collateral damage. She ascended swiftly into the air, summoning wings of ice. Ron leaped after her with a howl. Moon Slash. 3 glowing slashes shot from his claws, slicing through the air toward her. Udana pointed her wand forward, her voice calm but sharp. Ice Wave. A torrent of frost energy surged out, colliding with the incoming attacks. The two forces met midair, then exploded. Boom. The explosion painted the sky in shades of blue and red, a storm of frost and bloodlight. The impact shockwave cleared clouds, leaving a massive crater below. As the smoke cleared, the two figures floated in the air, eyes locked, energy distorting the space around them. Their next exchange would decide everything. The Frost Queen versus the Beast of the Abyss. The battle for Mystic City had only just begun. The new Mystic Rangers immediately set off to help the residents, their expressions anxious and filled with sorrow. This was the first time they had been in such a situation, but they knew they had to do it. Yet the foot soldiers weren't going to give them an easy time. They were immediately attacked. Enemy attack! Chip exclaimed, his voice sharp and alert. The others immediately faced the threat, their faces grim and filled with resolve. They charged forward with their magic-enhanced bodies, fists glowing faintly with energy as they attacked the foot soldiers fiercely. Blows echoed through the streets, bursts of light, flashes of magic, and the sounds of steel against bone filled the air. They managed to hold them off long enough for the residents to escape to safety, but after several minutes, fatigue started to set in. The soldiers' numbers were endless, swarming them from all directions. "Regroup," Nick commanded. The Rangers fell back, forming a defensive circle, each one facing a different side of the horde. They were panting, sweat dripping down their faces, their magic nearly depleted. This is the best time to Ranger up, guys." Xander's anxious voice cut through the chaos. "Does anyone really know how to transform?" Madison asked skeptically, her tone laced with desperation. Vita immediately responded. "Udana said we should just believe in magic and it would guide us." Nick froze for a moment, her words echoing in his mind. Believe, moreover, seeing all of this, who wouldn't believe in magic? As if in response to that conviction, information suddenly surged through his morpher, a flow of symbols and understanding flooding into his consciousness. His eyes widened in surprise, then determination. "Guys, just affirm the belief of magic in your hearts. The morphers we were given will teach us how to transform." The others followed his instructions instantly, clutching their morphers tightly. Within seconds, each of them received the same infusion of knowledge. Their eyes flickered with new light hope. Nick grinned under the pressure. "Guys, let's transform." They nodded without hesitation. "Protection domain, activate." Nick raised his hand, casting a minor protective spell. A translucent red barrier surrounded them briefly, pushing back the incoming soldiers. The Rangers took out their morphers, clicked the code 123, and raised them high. Magical source, mystic force. Time froze. The world turned silent. From the heavens above, the Morphin Grid descended like divine light. Colorful runes appeared in the sky, rotating majestically as beams of power fell upon them. Their bodies were engulfed in luminous energy, symbols of fire, water, wind, nature, and lightning etched themselves across their forms. One by one, their armor solidified: crimson for Nick, sapphire for Madison, golden yellow for Chip, pink for Vita, and green for Xander. The ground trembled slightly as the transformation completed. The light faded. Where once stood anxious teenagers, now stood warriors of legend. Nick clenched his fist, feeling the rush of strength. So this is Mystic Ranger power. Chip laughed excitedly. Oh man, this is awesome. I feel like I could punch through a wall. Vita twirled her staff effortlessly. Then punch the enemies instead, sunshine. The foot soldiers hesitated, sensing the shift in energy. Nick raised his weapon, his visor gleaming. All right, everyone, let's finish this. They charged as one. The battlefield lit up in an explosion of magic. Nick swung his magi staff downward, and a massive surge of flame erupted from the ground, consuming a dozen foot soldiers in an inferno. Firestorm burst. The air shimmered from the heat, leaving molten cracks in the street. Vita spun midair, her pink aura forming a spiraling vortex. Cyclone edge. A gust of violent wind cut through the enemy ranks like blades, sending bodies flying skyward before they crashed back down lifeless. Madison thrust her staff forward. Tidal strike. Streams of glowing blue water shaped like serpents burst forth, twisting around enemies before crushing them in waves. The sheer pressure shattered their weapons like glass. Chip leapt into the air, laughing as arcs of yellow lightning crackled around him. Thunder volley. Bolts rained from above, piercing through enemies in rapid succession. Each impact left a trail of smoking craters, the air heavy with the scent of ozone. Meanwhile, Xander stood at the center, his green aura pulsating like a storm about to burst. Gaia's storm. He slammed his staff into the ground, creating a wave of massive vine that destroyed everything in its path. The shockwave cleared the field instantly. Dust and debris rose high into the air, and when it settled, dozens of enemies lay scattered, broken, and burned. Nice one, Xander. Madison called out. He smirked. Thanks, but they're not done yet. True enough, more foot soldiers emerged from alleys and rooftops, leaping toward them in hordes. Nick raised his staff again. Then we'll end it in one strike. Everyone, together. The Rangers gathered, their weapons glowing in their respective colors. The 5 energies rose to the sky, merging into a brilliant sphere above them. Mystic convergence. Nick shouted. The sphere detonated, releasing a blinding explosion that swept through the battlefield. Every foot soldier within sight disintegrated into dust and vanished into sparks of black energy. Silence. The city was saved. They stood panting, their armor flickering faintly as the magic settled. We did it, Madison whispered. Chip pumped his fist. Our first battle, and we totally destroyed them. Vita chuckled, resting her staff on her shoulder. Not bad for beginners. Nick nodded, looking toward the horizon. Yeah, first mission complete. But their relief was short-lived. A powerful blast erupted nearby, where Udana and Ron were still fighting. Udana, her white cloak fluttering, stood poised in midair. Her staff glowed brilliantly as she unleashed a flurry of ice and light, each strike hammering Ron mercilessly. The Dark Commander was clearly losing ground, his armor shattered and his movements sluggish. You, witch! Ron hissed. Udana's expression remained cold. You dared to attack innocent lives. For that, you will pay. She gathered light at her staff's tip, forming a large sphere of pure energy. Light judgment. The beam struck Ron squarely, sending him crashing through several ruined buildings. His roar of agony echoed through the city. It seemed the battle was over. Udana descended slowly, raising her staff once more, ready to finish it. But before she could strike, a deep, commanding voice thundered through the air. You couldn't even defeat these weak mages. Truly worthy of Mordenkainen's commander. The voice sent chills down every spine. Ron's expression twisted into fear. He immediately dropped to one knee, trembling. Lord Korag. The humans, they are stronger than we imagined. A dark crimson portal opened above the city, and out of it stepped a tall knight clad in purple and black armor. His presence alone distorted the air. His eyes glowed beneath his wolf-like helmet as he floated effortlessly, emanating pressure that made even the ground tremble. Korag. Humph, Korag scoffed, his voice cold and disdainful. You are just too weak. Thousands of years in the pit have turned you all into cowards. Ron bowed lower. Forgive me, Lord Korag. Korag ignored him and turned his gaze toward Udana, his crimson eyes gleaming with dark recognition. The light of good. Udana. Give me the light, and I might spare your pitiful life. Udana's grip on her staff tightened, her eyes narrowing. Even if I must die, I will never surrender it. Korag's aura flared violently. The sheer pressure forced the newly transformed Rangers to their knees, their armor flickering as their systems struggled to endure. Vita gasped. What is this? This power? Nick gritted his teeth. He's strong. Too strong. Korag's annoyance was palpable. So be it. He raised his shield, its center glowing ominously. Then you shall die. He thrust the shield forward. Wolf attack. A gigantic purple phantom wolf erupted from the shield, its form translucent yet radiating immense destructive power. The beast howled, shaking the very heavens, before charging forward. Korag floated in midair, his cape billowing as the wolf descended toward the city. Udana watched the incoming attack, despair clouding her eyes. If only my magic wasn't sealed. I would have dealt with him easily. But it seems this is fate. The rest of my magic ends here. The wolf neared, its fangs bared and eyes blazing. But before it could strike, a massive red ray shot through the sky, colliding with the wolf mid-charge. The impact was deafening, the shockwave clearing the clouds themselves. The phantom beast disintegrated instantly, vanishing into dust. The world fell silent. Even Korag froze momentarily, his glowing eyes narrowing. Then, from the shadows of the ruined city, a calm yet playful voice echoed through the air. Let me join in the fun, Korag. The crimson light illuminated a tall silhouette emerging from the smoke, confident, powerful, and utterly unfazed. The atmosphere turned tense, the air thick with energy. The battle was far from over.
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.